Chapter 1261. A Matter of Life or Death. 5. Before, in order to save Nangong Luyun, Su Luo had covered his whole body with her blood, thus losing a great amount of blood. Several days hadn't passed since then, and once again, it was another great amount of blood loss, so Su Luo's complexion was pale as paper. If not for swallowing a lot of spirit medicine before in the treasure storage pavilion, very likely Su Luo would have already fainted. However, before Little Stone dealt with Elder Ancestor Mo, a trace of quick-wittedness flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Save me, my blood is about to be drained dry. First Elder, Palace Master Mo, quickly pull away this old man, Su Luo, facing those two rotten old men who looked as if they were watching a good play, cried for help, shouting and screaming. But these two, seeing Su Luo crying out for help, they not only turned a deaf ear, instead, their faces were still brimming with splendid smiles. First Elder then waved his hand, hinting for Su Luo to be quiet, with an indifferent voice, saying, "Originally, you were supposed to be human blood medicine. The value of your existence is to offer Central Palace your blood as spirit medicine. Even if you die, then it is also a worthy death. This is your honor." "Honor, your sister?" Su Luo furiously shouted in her heart. This first elder was really infuriating, sucked her blood, and still said this was her honor? The fury in Su Luo's heart grew without restraint. Originally, she still felt a little bit guilty for destroying Central Palace's foundation. Now, this guilt was really gone. Instead, she even felt that her retaliation wasn't thorough enough. Although she was complaining like this in her heart, Su Luo nevertheless had to put on a play on the surface. Her crying appearance was miserable and pitiful. "First Elder, there's something you don't know, my blood. My blood still hasn't been completely detoxified." First Elder's features were ice cold. Suddenly, his complexion turned bad. Before, he had personally tested that there was poison in Su Luo's blood. At that time, he even took the last divine spirit fruit for her to eat, so she could quickly heal. Then what about that divine spirit fruit? First Elder didn't believe her in the slightest. "I gave the divine spirit fruit to Nangong Luyun." Su Luo spread out her hands, telling the truth. "You," First Elder glared at Su Luo in rage. If eyes could kill, Su Luo would have already died 100 times through death by 1,000 cuts from the First Elder's glare. That was also the last divine spirit fruit in Central Palace, and she actually gave it away. That is impossible. First Elder indignantly put down the finger that was pointing at Su Luo. "First Elder, this is the truth. This blood of mine really is poisonous. Aren't you worried this old ancestor Mo of your family will be poisoned to death?" Su Luo's shouts seemed to get weaker and weaker, lacking more and more in energy. First Elder's sharp eyes unblinkingly stared at Su Luo, seeing the clear evasiveness in her eyes when he looked at her. He couldn't help but to smile coldly. "Loathsome girl, your hair still hadn't grown in neatly and would dare to cheat him. First Elder, you must believe me, this blood of mine really is poisonous. If you don't believe me and something bad was to happen to Elder Ancestor Mo, then don't blame me, Su Luo shouted, to inform them and wash herself clear of criminal charges in advance. Elder Ancestor Mo would certainly have a mishap. First Elder absolutely won't believe it. Divine spirit fruit, this kind of good thing, who would kindly give it to someone else? Wasn't this clearly lying? Su Luo, seeing that First Elder didn't believe her, a trace of chilliness quickly flashing through her eyes. At this moment, her figure was motionless. Her mind had already been replaced by little stones. First Elder only felt his eyes blur, as if the Su Luo before him had become someone else. Her entire body seemed to be enveloped in ice, her whole body emitting a frightening aura that terrified even him. What was this all about? First Elder's heart was alarmed, staring at Su Luo with his eyes opened wide. However, looking left and right, this girl's face was still the same But that aura was like a king overlooking the land under heaven, really made people feel extremely puzzled. Chapter 1262. A matter of life or death. 6. After Little Stone took over Su Luo's body, a formidable spirit attack went into the blood, unceasingly flowing into Elder Ancestor Mo's throat with rolling sounds. Elder Ancestor Mo, at first, was completely immersed in the tasty blood, liking it till it was hard to free himself, disregarding everything in the surroundings. Until the little stone, through the blood, quickly transmitted his spirit into Old Man Mo's mind. Old Man Mo's mind was already eroded by the black spots, thus, it made his temperament change greatly, becoming deranged. Now, this mind power of the little stone was even stronger. Suddenly, Old Man Mo's movement stopped. He looked up, gazing at Su Luo with a failing-to-understand expression, his gaze carrying a trace of doubt. He was very puzzled just now. That blood that was tasty, how did it suddenly change flavor? Before he could voice his question, suddenly, he felt those black spots that he had originally did his utmost to suppress down, very quickly start to re-emerge. Moreover, it started to spread rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. So painful. To what extent did this kind of pain reach? Even a super strong expert like Elder Ancestor Mo's whole body shuddered from the pain. Unable to stop himself, his hand held his head and he fell down in place, rolling back and forth in pain. Bean-sized drops of sweat continuously flowed out endlessly, soaking the entire floor. The First Elder and Palace Master Mo were completely stunned. They completely didn't expect that matter could unexpectedly have such a huge reversal. Just now, Elder Ancestor Mo was standing at an advantage. In the blink of an eye, he was holding his head, rolling on the ground. This reversal was too big, okay? Both of them had their mouths wide open, moved a bit, but couldn't say anything. Su Luo looked at those two people with an ice-cold gaze. She raised the tip of her brow, and the corner of her mouth turned into a taunting smile. What Little Stone said was right. Want to suck her blood, then see if you have the ability to swallow it. Now see, being snatched back by Central Palace and had her blood sucked by Old Man Mo. It wasn't as if there hadn't been a bit of benefit, at least, after this matter was spread out. If people were to know that even Old Man Mo couldn't bear it after drinking her blood, then one might ask, in the future, who would still dare to suck her blood? Want to court death? Of course, these were all Su Luo's inner thoughts. On the surface, our Su Luo still pretended to be pitiful and innocent. Oh my, didn't I say so? My blood is poisonous. It still hasn't been removed completely. You guys look, now problems occurred, right? Su Luo spread out both hands, pushing out all the problems. Just now, she was crying and shouting that her blood was poisonous. It was First Elder and Palace Master Mo that didn't believe her. Not only didn't they prevent it, instead, they were even glad to see it happen. This consequence was something they brought on themselves. First Elder glared at Su Luo. Loathsome girl, shut up. First Elder was itching to slap Su Luo and send her flying. But now, the most important thing was to save Elder Ancestor Mo. This person was Central Palace's backbone. He must not collapse. Big brother, how are you feeling? First Elder quickly dashed up, pulling at Old Man Mo with nervousness across his whole face. But, at this moment, Old Man Mo's mind was hurting to the point that it seemed it would burst. Where would he have the time to answer him? Palace Master Mo forcefully propped up his beaten body, limping to walk closer, also with deep concern across his whole face. Dad, what happened to you? Is it serious? Old Man Mo rolled around in pain and ignored them. Palace Master Mo held out his hand, wanting to help Elder Ancestor Mo up. No matter what, he must help him lie down on a bed first. Palace Master Mo's thought was very good, but implementing it was simply impossible. Just when Palace Master Mo reached out to help Elder Ancestor Mo up, Elder Ancestor Mo was just in a jittery state, on the brink of collapse. Seeing the two hands non-stop dragging him, moving him, the originally already incomparably irritable Old Man Mo immediately became furious. Chapter 1263. A Matter of Life or Death. 7. He suddenly lifted his head, with a pair of bloodshot eyeballs, unwaveringly stared at Emo Zishu. Being stared at by this gaze filled with hatred, Emo Zishu immediately became mute. Without waiting for Emo Zishu to react, Elder Ancestor Emo directly lifted his hands to slap him, ruthlessly smashing into Emo Zishu's face. Emo Zishu was originally beaten up like a rag, so how could he bear it now? He fell back with thump, thump, thump sounds, then ferociously hit the wall. At this moment, the palace was already on the verge of collapse. Then, adding a hit like this, a crashing sound could be heard. Su Luo secretly said not good in her heart. This palace was about to collapse. She couldn't stay here any longer. Su Luo wanted to leave, taking advantage of no one paying attention, and retreated step by step. Retreating a distance of 7 steps, there was just a column that supported the wall. Thus, Su Luo, with noiseless treading steps, secretly hid behind the column. Teleport. Su Luo said in a low voice. Afterwards, a flash, and her figure had already disappeared in place. Just after Su Luo had teleported away in less than the time to take a breath. At this moment, don't know what bothered Old Man Emo. Maybe it was those black spots that had completely controlled his mind, making him suffer extreme pain. This Old Man Emo, having a hard time suppressing the pain, wildly roared, "Os!" A bellow, as if cutting off thousands of birds in flight, and wiping out 10,000 people's footsteps. Like boiling lava bursting out, and also like huge raging waves rolling up 3,000 meters high. The heaven and earth fiercely shook as if Judgment Day had come. The most important was still the sound wave itself. This bellow of Old Man Emo, who had lost his mind, contained his peak Saint rank's formidable strength, completely without the slightest bit of restraint, rushing out like a wild torrent. Now, having suffered this ferocious sound wave attack, this palace shook, countless bricks continuously smashing down. Let's go quickly. First Elder pulled on Old Man Emo and was just about to leave. At this moment, his expression carried a bit of anxiety. That bellow from just now even turned him over in place. His chi and blood rolled over and over. He received internal injuries. Also don't know how big the damage Central Palace would suffer this time. If others created it, they could still demand compensation. Unfortunately, it was their own family's elder. No, the main culprit ought to be Su Luo, that loathsome girl. If not for her blood, elder brother also wouldn't. First elder turned around to look for Su Luo. Even if they couldn't suck her blood, they also must not let her live. First, exterminate her to get revenge. But first elder's plan of counting his chickens before they hatched didn't succeed. Because seeing that the situation was far from good, Su Luo had escaped even quicker than a rabbit. How could she possibly stay in place to become their punching bag? Where's Su Luo? Where's that smelly girl? First elder angrily roared wildly. First elder, first, let's not care about her. We need to quickly go out. Emo Zishu stood up with difficulty and was about to limp out. Seeing that this palace was about to collapse, if they didn't get out, at that time, everyone would be buried alive. If it was ordinarily, how could a sinking palace bury him, Central Palace's master, alive? The problem was, at this moment, he had a bunch of internal and external injuries, and the attacker was his own father. He could not even avenge this hatred. Emo Zishu was about to be stifled to death. First elder unwillingly swept a glance around again, finally angrily saying, "Loathsome girl, give you a last chance. If you come out now, I can still spare your life. Wait for the next minute, and you will be buried alive." Bricks rolling down like a tide was the response to First Elder. Old Man Emo was smashed by a brick. He didn't dodge or avoid, as if this was nothing. However, that was also correct. According to this old man's strength, these bricks simply couldn't do anything to him. Chapter 1264. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 1. Old Man Emo only stared blankly at the corner Su Luo disappeared from, eyes unmoving, no different from an idiot. Elder brother, quickly leave. First elder, seeing Emo Zishu walk out limping, also felt the fierce shaking of the wall's foundations. Without thinking, he directly reached out to pull Old Man Mo. But he forgot. At this moment, this dazed Old Man Mo already wasn't that elder brother of his. This person's mind didn't function well, and he also didn't recognize people. Don't know what Old Man Mo was thinking at this moment. He was continuously staring at the place Su Luo disappeared from, with his head crooked, all alone. He couldn't think too clearly. Suddenly, a divine light flashed on in his mind. Just when he was on the verge of guessing it, he was roared at by First Elder and stiffly had this idea roared away. Old Man Mo was immediately furious. He became madly furious, wildly cried wah, 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 and pushed with both hands, directly pushing First Elder out of the palace. His strength was huge. First Elder, who was pushed out, flew far away and ruthlessly smashed onto a tree before his body stopped. Cough, cough, cough. First Elder covered his chest, fiercely coughing, coughing and coughing, and then coughed out a lot of blood. First Elder, at this moment, simply wanted to cry yet lacked tears. In these several days, Central Palace encountered huge changes, even adding up the pain and tribulations for all of his life. It wasn't so serious as today. Not only was his mind in torment, his body was also in pain. He was physically and emotionally exhausted. He really wanted to fall to the ground and not get up. Just when First Elder was about to gloomily spit out more blood again, suddenly, that palace not far away violently shook, and afterwards, crash, the towering palace actually completely collapsed. Elder Ancestor Mo was still inside. Just thinking of this matter, First Elder felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Elder brothers. First Elder shakily stood up and then took strides to move forward, running. Although Old Man Mo had gone mad, but First Elder still firmly believed he would get better. He would once more carry Central Palace to the summit. First Elder dashed forward, yet couldn't help but halt his steps. The surroundings around the hall, those guards that were originally protecting it, at this moment, they had already bled out from their 7 apertures and died. Must have been shaken to death from Old Man Mo's previous roar. These guards, every one of them was above 6 rank. They were all Central Palace's elite. Just like this, they were sacrificed in vain. First Elder's eyes carried a deep sorrow. Elder brother still hasn't come out. First Elder stood in place, in a daze with a compassionate expression. Dad will be fine. Palace Master Mo stood up straight with great difficulty and wiped away the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth. Why hasn't he come out yet after so long? First Elder stretched out his neck to glance around. There was a trace of worry in his eyes. Just when these two people were talking, suddenly the ruins of the collapsed palace ahead abruptly broke out with a fierce shaking. Immediately after, a formidable cold air directly dashed to the skies. Among the crashing sounds, the middle of the ruins was cleared in an instant, showing a 10 square meters of clean surface. And at this moment, Old Man Mo was just standing there with bits of rock stuck to his head and face. He had a frosty expression, like a cold sword that soared out. That pair of remote and cold eyes of his simply looked rigidly straight ahead. It carried a trace of bewilderment and puzzlement, as if he felt extreme unfamiliarity with this world. Elder brother. First Elder took a step forward. Dad. Palace Master Mo wanted to pull at him, but once again timidly withdrew his hand. Elder Ancestor Mo's ice-cold eyes cast them a glance. The bottom of his pupils were tranquil like water. He used an expression of seeing empty air when glancing past them, as if he didn't know them at all. Chapter 1265. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 2. First Elder and Mo Zishu looked at each other in dismay. Neither of them said anything, but their brows knitted tightly. Because they felt Elder Ancestor Mo's insanity illness seemed even more severe. Sure enough, after Elder Ancestor Mo's gaze swept over them, there was no other words. He lifted his feet and directly left. He just left like this? First Elder and Mo Zishu both didn't know what ought to be done. At this moment, the two of them also didn't dare to disturb Elder Ancestor Mo, because the Elder Ancestor Mo right now didn't recognize his own family. He moved with a ruthless hand, absolutely merciless. They dared not go up to be rebuffed. As a result, the two people could only helplessly follow behind Elder Ancestor Mo, wanting to see, in the end, what he would do. At this moment, the entire central palace was a scene of complete chaos. Regarding this matter, there was some coincidence, but it was all within Nangong Liuyun's calculations. After Su Luo was snatched, Nangong Liuyun told Bai Qining and Ziyan to seize the opportunity to set fire to Central Palace. It was also because the two people's luck was good, just when they were ready, that world-shaking roar from Elder Ancestor Mo resounded. Being struck by this sound, the entire Central Palace seemed to have encountered a formidable earthquake, the floor fiercely shaking. Some that were weak in strength directly spit out blood, fell to the ground, and didn't get up. Bai Qining and Ziyan barely resisted this time's intense attack. Then afterwards, they seized the opportunity to commit arson. The two people with speed as their forte burned the whole way from north to south. Along the way, any rooms and buildings they could see were all set on fire by them. It's on fire. Put out the fire. Hurry up and put out the fire. Quickly, quickly. The central building is on fire. Second young master's courtyard is on fire. Third Mrs. Courtyard is on fire. Hurry up and put out the fires. What about the water element mages? Where are the water element mages? For a moment, the disturbance in Central Palace was even more clamorous than a market. Originally, because of that angry roar from Elder Ancestor Mo, Central Palace met with serious damage. Now, there was a terrible feeling of Judgment Day having arrived, casting a shadow over everyone's hearts. Bai Qining, besides setting fire, he was also an expert in the wind element. A burst of wind rolled over, immediately making flames in one courtyard leap to another courtyard. So, very quickly, nearly the entire Central Palace sank into an ocean of fire. Quickly catch those two arsonists. At this moment, the guards finally discovered Bai Qining and Ziyan's figures. He pointed at the two people on the roof and angrily roared. The flames soared to the sky. Bai Qining put his hands on his hips and stuck out his tongue, making a face. Come on, come catch us all. If you have the ability, then catch us all. Just when Bai Qining was being immensely proud of himself, an angry snarl came from far away. Bai Qining, you dare? Mo Yunfeng's voice came closer and closer. By the time he said you dare, his figure was already very close to Bai Qining's. What bad luck! How did I provoke Mo Yunfeng to come over? Bai Qining's expression immediately became twisted. Wasn't Mo Yunfeng locked away in secluded practice? Why did he come out to be a scourge? Recalling Mo Yunfeng's 9th-rank strength, Bai Qining immediately felt a headache. He grabbed Ziyan, then turned around to run in the southern direction. Quickly run, otherwise it'll be too late to run. Ziyan subconsciously opened her legs to run, but there was a trace of worry in her expression. We are running just like this. If Luo and third senior brother meet danger, what's to be done? Bai Qining saw Mo Yunfeng's speed getting faster and faster, and his tone had a trace of anxiety. Did you forget what Nangong said? Us leaving in a timely manner is the best help for them. If we implicate them, the two of them simply won't be able to escape. Moreover, if we tangle up Mo Yunfeng, we're making sure he doesn't have time to go look for Luo and Nangong's trouble. This way, isn't it like having the best of both worlds? Chapter 1266. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 3. Have to say, Bai Qining and Nangong Liuyun, sure enough, were close childhood friends who grew up with each other. He could somewhat guess at Nangong Liuyun's thoughts. Then good, we'll run for it, and by all means, must not be captured. Ziyan, with a rightfully apprehensive expression, solemnly nodded her head. Thus, the two people that had finished discussing this issue displayed their normally quickest speed, rushing forward at high speed. Because Mo Yunfeng received some internal injuries when he fought with Mo Yunhai before, if the situation this time wasn't so urgent, he definitely would not run out to wander about randomly. It was also because he had suffered internal injuries that his speed was somewhat lowered. As a result, Mo Yunfeng continuously maintained the same distance between him and Bai Qining and Ziyan. At the moment, Bai Qining and Ziyan couldn't run away, nor could Mo Yunfeng catch up to them. The three of them assumed this kind of subtle balance, two running and one chasing, their steps gradually going southwards. After Bai Qining and Ziyan ran away. In Central Palace, Su Luo only had Nangong Luyan as a helper. However, she didn't know what Nangong Luyan was busy doing right now and still hadn't joined up with Su Luo. Su Luo teleported with each step, quickly going southwards, to that place Nangong Luyan and her had agreed on before. However, before Su Luo reached her destination, she had already run into trouble. This troublesome person was not someone else, it was the main female lead of the sex scandal, Mo Yunqing. Because of last time, Mo Yunfeng and Mo Yunqing's sex scandal made First Elder furious. At that time, First Elder had wanted to immediately exterminate Mo Yunqing. It was because Palace Master Mo didn't have the heart to let it be done, so agreed to lock her away securely to let her properly reflect. According to the rules, Mo Yunqing was locked away in a tightly closed room, but no one could have anticipated that bellow from Elder Ancestor Mo that startled the heavens and made ghosts sob actually shook open the always sealed door in the forbidden area. Although Mo Yunqing suffered a bit from the shaking, with her qi and blood somewhat unstable, however, luckily, it was not too serious. At this moment, curiosity occupied her entire heart. Consequently, Mo Yunqing left the sealed room without permission and secretly, through the long and narrow tunnels, walked out quietly on tiptoes. Don't know whether or not Su Luo had bad luck to the utmost degree. As chance had it, when Su Luo had just teleported out and opened her eyes, she was only a meter away from Mo Yunqing. The two people stared at each other head-on. Su Luo, at one glance, immediately had a bad premonition. Mo Yunqing, with a gaze of seeing a ghost, foolishly stared blankly at Su Luo. Then, she covered her ears and loudly shrieked, "Ah!" Su Luo speechlessly looked at this idiotic female, her hand extending out to smash towards Mo Yunqing's back nape. However, at this moment, Mo Yunqing seemed to have been possessed by a ghost. She avoided Su Luo's attack. At the same time, her gaze turned severe and vicious, glaring at Su Luo while she loudly questioned, "Su Luo, how did you appear just now? You quickly tell me." Su Luo remaining silent, raising her eyebrows. This idiot, must she answer whatever she asked? Su Luo was too lazy to waste words with her, turned around, and was about to leave. But just at this moment, Mo Yunqing coldly snorted and said, "Su Luo, you can teleport, right?" Su Luo halted her steps, gazing at Mo Yunqing with ill intent while maintaining her silence. "You are a space mage. You can teleport, right?" Mo Yunqing angrily questioned. After she asked this question, it seemed as if she found the truth. Her train of thought flowed more and more easily and voluntarily continued. The divine spirit tree was stolen, but there was no trace of mud that dropped on the ground. Very clearly, it was put into space and taken away. Su Luo raised her eyebrows, non-committally raising the corner of her mouth. Mo Yunqing, seeing Su Luo like this, sneered even more. "Our family's treasure storage pavilion. All the treasures were stolen. If one didn't have space to hold things, how could all of it be carried away by one person? Su Luo, you say, am I right?" Chapter 1267. Strike first to gain the upper hand, for Su Luo raised her lips into a ghost of a smile. So, the person that stole the divine spirit tree was you. The person that robbed the treasure storage pavilion was also you. Mo Yunqing's eyes were brimming with indignation, her eyes very fiercely condemning Su Luo. It had to be said, Mo Yunqing had successfully guessed the truth correctly by a stroke of luck. Only, this act was like adultery. If they weren't caught in the act, who would admit to it? Our clever Miss Su certainly would deny it to the end and would even counterattack. Clap, 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 Su Luo unhurriedly clapped. Seeing this calm and composed appearance of Su Luo's, Mo Yunqing was angered until she laughed and said in a cold, furious tone, "What are you mocking at?" Su Luo very innocently spread open her hands. "Where does it seem as if I'm mocking? Ah, you have made me seem so godlike, brave and without a rival, peerless under the heavens. I am just applauding to express my thanks, right?" "You." Mo Yunqing glared at Su Luo, panting with rage. "Steal the divine spirit tree? Rob the treasure storage pavilion?" Su Luo drew close to Mo Yunqing, step by step, the sneer in her eyes becoming clearer. "Is it you that imagine me to be so awesome, or is your central palace's defense like soybean pulp?" "You?" Mo Yunqing angrily pointed at Su Luo, but was unable to say anything. She was unable to refute every word Su Luo had said. Su Luo cynically cast her a glance. "Mo Yunqing, you can't refute it, right?" Mo Yunqing glared at Su Luo resentfully. "Yes, just now a large part of it were just my guesses, but Su Luo, you can't deny the matter of you being able to teleport. This, I have seen with my own eyes." "Humph, I'm going to tell Daddy this right now." Mo Yunqing lifted her foot and was just about to leave. A space mage. How important was this for the entire continent? Su Luo clearly was Central Palace's enemy. Could it be that they still would tolerate it and let her mature? This kind of person, naturally, should be exterminated early in the cradle. Mo Yunqing believed that her wise and good at martial arts daddy would certainly think the same as her. However, Mo Yunqing had only walked 2 steps away when her entire body suddenly stood rigidly to the spot. Because that chunging sword in Su Luo's hand directly pierced through her chest from her back, completely passing through. Mo Yunqing was immediately struck dumb. She lowered her head to look at the sword point that penetrated out, and she turned her head in disbelief, staring at Su Luo. "You dare kill me?" Su Luo sneeringly curled her lips. "Some people really are extremely interesting. You are being killed, and would actually still say, 'You dare kill me?'" Mo Yunqing only felt the qi and blood fiercely roll over and over in her chest. She was the grand third miss of Central Palace. She was usually the favorite of elder ancestor in the grandchildren generation. She was the little princess of the entire Central Palace, who didn't cup her in the palm of their hand and spoil her. Not even her dad would dare to speak a harsh word to her, but now, her body was directly impaled through by someone. She was about to die. Once she thought of this fact, Mo Yunqing's entire body was about to collapse. "Su Luo, I hate you." Mo Yunqing's figure swayed and almost fell. The corner of Su Luo's mouth curved up, her expression like solidified ice, while the bottom of her eyes had a thick chill. "Hate, then hate. You dying is always better than me dying." If the matter of her being a space mage was to spread out, if the matter of her being able to teleport was spread out, the previous matter of stealing the divine spirit tree and robbing the treasure storage pavilion could completely be found out. After all, Palace Master Mo wouldn't be as retarded as Mo Yunqing. So, rather than let Mo Yunqing go tell on her and cause her death, it would be better for her to strike first to gain the upper hand. As a result, as Mo Yunqing was turning around, Su Luo, without the slightest hesitation, ordered Chenging's sword to strike. Chenging's sword also didn't fail to live up to her expectations. With one strike, it penetrated Mo Yunqing's back, through to her chest. Moreover, it pierced through the center of her heart. Chapter 1268. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 5. Mo Yunqing hadn't expected that Su Luo would directly kill her without saying anything. As she collapsed, her face was still filled with a disbelieving expression. Su Luo watched as she fell to the ground, then shook her head and sighed. In front of someone's face, you say you're going to tattletale. You say, how could you not dive? Su Luo pulled out Chenging's sword. In the split second she pulled out Chenging's sword, its blade was covered in blood, but in the blink of an eye, this blood was thoroughly absorbed by Chenging's sword. Now, the sword blade was bright like clear spring. Moreover, Su Luo could clearly feel Chenging's sword's lively and excited mood. So, It turned out Chinging's sword could become so excited after it sucked blood. Su Luo actually hadn't anticipated this from the beginning. All of a sudden, Su Luo felt a strong, powerful pressure bearing down, suddenly attacking in this direction. Her heart stirred, and she secretly said, "Not good." If what she guessed wasn't wrong, this formidable power pressing down would certainly be Elder Ancestor having chased over. Thinking of this possibility, how could Su Luo still dare to stay here? She activated her spirit force, made hand seals, and quickly shouted in a low voice, "Teleport." Her voice had barely faded when Su Luo's figure flashed, and all traces of her directly disappeared on the spot. In the instant Su Luo had disappeared, a powerful figure appeared beside Mo Yunqing. Su Luo's expectations were right. This person was precisely Mo family's elder ancestor who had already lost his mind. Elder Ancestor stared foolishly at the place Su Luo had just disappeared from. His thick eyebrows were tightly wrinkled. Slowly, step by step, he walked over. He completely ignored his favorite granddaughter that was lying on the ground. To put it more precisely, at this moment, Mo Yunqing in his eyes was simply just a block of wood. Old man Mo finally stood at the place Su Luo had disappeared, with an expression of sinking into deep contemplation, like there was something he was unable to understand. Very quickly, two figures appeared behind old man Mo. First Elder and Mo Zishu. Mo Zishu, at one glance, saw Mo Yunqing lying on the ground, and his entire body immediately didn't feel good. He dashed up 2 steps, half-knelt on the ground, and picked up Mo Yunqing. "Yunqing? Yunqing, what happened to you? Wasn't she locked up in the tightly sealed room? Why would her body be stiffly lying here?" Seeing this treasured daughter in front of his eyes with her chest covered in bloodstains, Mo Zishu's heartache reached the peak. Even the rims of his eyes were somewhat moist. "Yunqing! What's wrong with Yunqing?" First Elder, seeing the motionless Mo Yunqing, his heart was also shocked, but he was a lot calmer than Mo Zishu. First Elder saw that Mo Yunqing was somewhat not good and extended his finger to search for her breath. There's still a slight breath. First Elder didn't know whether this was something happy or sad. "Quickly save her. Save her." Mo Zishu grabbed First Elder's sleeve, roaring wildly and furiously. This was his, Mo Zishu's, daughter, the daughter he pampered for 16 years. How could he possibly allow her to die? How could he possibly allow the matter of seeing his child die before himself happen? First Elder silently glanced at Mo Zishu, and he sighed faintly. "You shouldn't have excessive expectations." Her heart was entirely pierced through. Her 5 viscera and 6 bowels have completely turned into fine powder. Able to let her have a last moment of lucidity before death is already extremely difficult. How could it be possible to save her? Mo Zishu, hearing this information that made him give up all hope, a despairing expression appeared on his face. His Yunqing, his treasured daughter, would she die so tragically just like this? No. Even if we can only have a moment of lucidity before death, it will do. I must know who killed my treasured daughter. The expression on Mo Zishu's face was sinister and very terrifying. With an imposing killing intent, he tightly clenched his fists. Chapter 1269. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 6. First Elder lifted his eyes. Upon seeing Elder Ancestor Mo stand there in a trance, he thought for a bit, and then agreed to help. First Elder's expression tensed. He spread the palm of his right hand up and a ray of light appeared, this ray of light slowly forming into a ball of light. Mo Zishu stared at that ball of light nervously, afraid of any possible mishap that might occur. When the ball had grown large enough, this ball of light, containing an endless amount of spirit strength, rapidly attacked towards Mo Yunqing's chest wound. Around the wound, the ball of light burst open and turned into fragmented rays of light. These rays of light entered through her wound and quickly spread through her 4 limbs and hundreds of bones. During this period of time, First Elder's expression was taut, his eyes unblinkingly staring at Mo Yunqing. This was the most crucial moment. If it was disturbed by someone, even he, himself, would suffer from the recoil. At such a tense moment, Mo Zishu held his breath with rapt attention, not daring to breathe at all. In his sharp falcon-like eyes, cold light was prominent to the greatest extent, flickering with a sinister star-like brightness. Whoever dared to kill his daughter would inevitably suffer the pain 100-fold. At this time, Su Luo was completely unaware that her secret was on the verge of being exposed. She kept on running very quickly. Time passed, little by little. After all the rays of light had entered Mo Yunqing's body, her ice-cold and stiff body gradually started to warm up. Suddenly, Mo Yunqing's fingers moved. There's a response. Mo Zishu, who had observed everything intensely, got more and more excited, and almost screeched out loud. First Elder sent him a gloomy glare before Mo Zishu returned to his senses. Consequently, he hurriedly ceased to make a sound. After the fingers moved, a short time later, Mo Yunqing's thick, curly eyelashes started to move. After noticing this, Mo Zishu's eyes brimmed with tears from excitement. But this time, he only watched closely and did not make a sound to disturb the situation, because he saw a fine layer of sweat had formed on First Elder's forehead. It could clearly be seen First Elder, using Return the Soul technique, actually cost how great an amount of his energy and concentration. After a while, Mo Shizu finally excitedly saw Mo Yunqing slowly opening her eyes with difficulty. Dad, Mo Yunqing's voice lacked strength and was a little bit husky. Dad's good chinger. Mo Zishu gripped Mo Yunqing's hand excitedly, eyes full of hot tears. You finally woke up. Finally woke up. Dad, am I not dead? Mo Yunqing's head felt fuzzy. She couldn't remember a lot of things.
Pooh.
Don't mention that word. No matter what, Mo Zishu would not accept the matter of his daughter's death. This time First Elder was gloomily complaining in his heart. Could it be that Mo Zishu thought this Return the Soul technique was easy to use? To say such nonsense. First Elder could not speak out loud, so he could only glare fiercely at Mo Zishu. But now, Mo Zishu, who was immersed in excitement, was completely oblivious to First Elder's hint, and kept on holding his treasured daughter to say this and that, until First Elder couldn't stand to watch it anymore, and heavily coughed a few times. Only now did Mo Zishu return to his senses. He pulled on Mo Yunqing and loudly asked, Chinger, quickly tell Dad what had happened just now. Who stabbed your heart with a sword? Now, Mo Zishu's face was twisted and sinister, emitting a seething murderous aura, making anybody who saw extremely terrified. Mo Yunqing also shivered a little too. Who was it that used a sharp sword to stab her heart? Mo Yunqing sank into deep thought. Chinga? Chinga? Mo Zishu saw Mo Yunqing failed to return to her senses and rocked her body slightly. Chapter 1270. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 7. Who is it? Mo Yunqing realized that her mind seemed empty. A lot of things were mixed up, and she could not pull out any specific thoughts. Yes, who is it? Who did you see at that last minute? Mo Zishu asked in a loud voice. It's. Mo Yunqing rocked her mind with all her might. Suddenly, she had a flash of insight and remembered a fragment. Daddy sent Chinger to confinement. Yes, it's Daddy's fault. That Daddy actually sent Ching into confinement. Mo Zishu immediately admitted his mistake, luring Mo Yunqing to continue. What about after being confined? How did the door to the confinement room open? Mo Zishu felt that the Mo Yunqing at this moment was somewhat strange. Compared to her usual self, now, she seemed rigid, inflexible, with slow reaction. Her mind worked slowly, as if she was a marionette. However, without a doubt, only Mo Yunqing knew who was her real murderer. Confinement room's door. Mo Yunqing moved her overworked brain cells with great difficulty, recalling memories over and over again. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, a pair of slender hands rigidly gripping Mo Zishu until her joints turned white. It could clearly be seen how excited she was.
Dad.
Su. Su, Mo Yunqing couldn't speak clearly out of excitement. She could only continue to say this word. No matter what, she couldn't say the following word. Book 1. Book what? Mo Zishu wasn't able to make sense of it all, and he hurriedly pressed Mo Yunqing. Don't rush. You can say it slowly. Su. Luo. The excited Mo Yunqing finally was able to say that word. Su Luo. It was Su Luo who killed you. In an instant, it seemed as if Mo Zishu's face was wrapped in frost. His rage grew without restraint with fists clenched tightly. Moreover, Su Luo is, all of a sudden, Mo Yunqing's body violently shuddered, almost fainting away again. What is Su Luo? Say it quickly. Mo Zia loudly urged. Is empty, too. The more excited Mo Yunqing became, the more she wasn't able to speak. Only her body was shaking continuously. At this moment, the sweat on First Elder's forehead rolled down one after another. He had already reached the maximum that he could support. Uncle, hold on a little longer, just a little longer. Mo Zishu could feed the truth Mo Yunqing was about to say was something that would be very shocking. He was reluctant to give up now. Although First Elder's heart felt gloomy, but he had no choice but to nod his agreement. Hence, First Elder bit his tongue and used the temporary pain to stimulate his latent strength, continuing to maintain the flow of spirit force. Wink 3. Wink. The Mo Yunqing right now seemed to have been swept by the autumn wind, shivering with cold. Her eyes turned upwards. Only the whites were visible. She kept repeating this word, repeating continuously. Mo Zishu's brain got big from listening to this. Wink what? You say ah. Mo Zishu repeatedly urged. Wink, cough. Mo Yunqing's nostrils, mouth, ears and eyes started seeping out blood nonstop. It was a horrible sight to see. Blood in her throat flowed backwards, causing her to cough violently. Just at this time, Elder Ancestor Mo suddenly turned around. That pair of remotely cold eyes were like sharp swords, charging towards Mo Yunqing. Following his approaching large strides, an aura of a strong expert's pressure enveloped Mo Yunqing. Say. Elder Ancestor Mo suddenly stretched out his hand, like an eagle grabbing a chick. He directly lifted up Mo Yunqing by her collar and picked her up high into the air. 1. Book. The Su in Su Luo's name sound like the Chinese character for book. 2. Empty. Space in Chinese is composed of two characters. The first character by itself means empty. So she was only able to say the first character out of two for space. 3. Wink. The first of two Chinese character for teleport that means wink. Chapter 1271. Strike first to gain the upper hand. 8. Poor Mo Yunqing. With great difficulty, she had just stopped coughing and was just lifted up like this by Elder Ancestor Mo immediately. Her whole body didn't feel good. Say. Elder Ancestor Mo's temper was bad. After losing his wisdom, his temper got even worse. He saw Mo Yunqing didn't respond, and the strength in his hands increased by 100%. The current Mo Yunqing was already on the verge of death. With a gossamer of breath, how could she withstand such ravage? One could only hear a crack sound, and Mo Yunqing's neck was directly snapped by Elder Ancestor Mo Yunqing. Mo Zishu heard the sound. He felt bad inside. He stood up and rushed forward. Elder Ancestor Mo saw Mo Yunqing had died. In passing, he tossed her to Mo Zishu and even said an assessing sentence in displeasure. Useless. Having said this, Elder Ancestor Mo tossed his sleeves in anger and left. Mo Zishu's entire person was stunned. Looking at the completely lifeless Mo Yunqing in his arms, seeing the obvious purple on her neck, hot magma-like fury rose in his eyes. The fists by his sides clenched tightly. Hateful. He lifted his head, looking at Elder Ancestor Mo, who was getting further and further away, and his eyes turned gloomy. First Elder directly slapped Mo Zishu's head. Mo Yunqing was already dead. Are you blaming your dad? Now, he doesn't even know who he is, and you still want to demand something from him. Mo Zishu was slapped awake by First Eder. He couldn't help but to lower his head to look at the ice-cold body. All the 5 senses on the face dyed red with blood. The rage in his eyes ignited and soared. Su Luo. That's right. Even if you want revenge, you ought to seek Su Luo, that loathsome girl. First Elder expressed approval of Mo Zishu's response. At this moment, First Elder also wasn't feeling very good. In the beginning, he was seriously injured by Elder Ancestor Mo. Now, he was barely able to use Return the Soul technique. The worst part was that he was interrupted halfway by Elder Ancestor Mo, so Return the Soul technique all recoiled back onto him. Everything kept adding injuries to the already wounded First Elder. First Elder silently wiped away the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth and faintly sighed. Ever since Yunfeng invited those people to Central Palace would get robbed repeatedly. Don't know if our way of handling things is retribution from the heavens. No. This is not retribution. Even if it is retribution, I will walk the path in defiance to the natural order. Mo Zishu clenched his fists, his face grave and grim. I vow not to stop until I kill Su Luo. At this moment, Mo Zishu was clearly concerned with Mo Yunqing's unfinished words. If he thought carefully, through guess and luck, maybe he could guess what Mo Yunqing didn't have time to finish saying. Unfortunately, those divine lights were buried by his rage, and no one knew when it would resurface ever again. Uncle, you follow the ancestor. I will go find Su Luo, that loathsome girl. Mo Zishu handed Mo Yunqing's corpse to his subordinates, and his body soared to the sky, directly disappearing in place. Mo Zishu went towards that remote small courtyard, but how could Su Luo be so stupid as to obediently wait there for him to kill her? It was obvious that this wasn't possible. At that time, Su Luo, after multiple teleports, had already arrived at the place she and Nangong Luyan had agreed upon. However, before she could find Nangong Luyan, she saw a cold and harsh back. This back turned around, cold eyes bored directly to meet Su Luo's gaze. Su Luo's heart suddenly throbbed violently. She wanted to turn around to run. But in this kind of situation, it was already no good to flee in someone's presence. Your blood, it tastes pretty good. Elder Ancestor Mo's fierce eyes pressed tightly on Su Luo, his eyebrows knitted firmly, and wholeheartedly gave her a praise. Chapter 1272. Whether or not she could escape. Once Su Luo was so gloomy, she was close to spitting out blood. Tasty blood? Of course her blood was tasty. It was the best tonic under heaven, able to revive the dead. How could it not be tasty? Just now, this old fellow nearly drank half of the blood in her body. What else did he want? Of course, she cursed him countless times in her heart, but on the surface, she still needed to appear as a feeble person. Ahem. Su Luo cleared her throat. Elder must be busy, right? Then I won't disturb you. After she was done saying these words, Su Luo turned around, wanting to slip away. This old man wasn't in his right mind because of her, completely losing all of his intellect. If you were to say that Su Luo didn't feel a bit guilty, then that was impossible. However, before Su Luo could walk several steps away, an ice-cold voice called her to a stop. Halt! Although Elder Ancestor Mo's mind was not all there, but that pair of peculiarly sharp eyes specific to strong experts was still scary, boring into Su Luo's back, almost burning a hole through it. The foot Su Luo lifted up hung with uncertainty in midair. Helplessly, her body turned around, and she put a flattering smile on her face. Hee, what instructions does this elder have? You come over. Elder Ancestor Mo had one hand behind his back and beckoned Su Luo over with the other. That action and expression seemed as if he was calling a little pet. Your damned younger sister. You call this miss to go over, and this miss will go? Wasn't it like losing face? Besides, why go over? Wasn't it because he still wanted to drink this miss's blood? Su Luo gloomily ridiculed in her heart. However, she dared not show this displeasure on her face. because she had considered that this old codger's mind was abnormal, so Su Luo didn't dare make any movements that would stimulate him. A madman wasn't scary, but people feared a madman with formidable martial arts. A madman at the peak of saint's rank. Nobody could be sure, if he slapped a palm over, whether she would still exist or not. Come. Old madman's patience was clearly very bad. He saw Su Luo standing there motionless, and his thick eyebrows immediately wrinkled. Su Luo felt completely helpless. Because in front of an absolute powerful expert, all her crafty plots and machinations were useless. Therefore, Su Luo could only gloomily take 3 steps forward and 2 backwards, and try to stall for time. While she was stalling for time, she was also pondering plans to flee. Thinking about this, Su Luo sadly realized her running away escaping experience was very rich. From when she first crossed over to this strange world, Su Luo realized that she simply didn't have several days that were calm and smooth. The majority of the time, she was running. She ran even further than Forrest Gump. Elder ancestor Mo saw Su Luo dilly-dally around like a snail and not saying a word. He only used a pair of gloomy eyes with a cold, threatening face to stare at her right wrist. Being stared at by his burning hot gaze, Su Luo only sneered internally. Wasn't this old codger afraid of having his mind invaded and occupied by black spots? Then his entire mind would fall apart? Su Luo linked up with Little Stone in her mind. Should I let him suck some blood once more? Su Luo sounded out and asked. Suck fart. How much blood do you think your body has left? Now, you already are seriously lacking in blood. If you let him suck several mouthfuls, your life will be gone. What was more important, this loathsome girl's blood was how precious. He just couldn't continue to watch it being wasted by the old madman. Then what's to be done? Su Luo asked helplessly. Run. Little Stone glared. Don't you know how to teleport through space? Hurry, run. But I can only teleport 3 kilometers at a time. Su Luo spread out her hands helplessly. Old madman's speed in a flash is certainly faster than me teleporting. Who told her to have just entered the gates of teleportation knowledge? A short 3 kilometers. For any other person, that was an unattainable speed. But for old madman who is a strong expert at the peak of saint level, this simply wasn't enough for him to look. Chapter 1273. Whether or not she could escape. 2. Forget it. Consider it as me having lost you. Although God's secrets must not be revealed to mortals, but here's a little hint. Damn gods shouldn't strike me down with just this hint. Little Stone grabbed his hair. Take the 256 threads in your mind and fuse them together into 128 threads. Then your speed can increase 10 times. Even traveling 500 kilometers with one thought will not be a problem. Then how can I fuse the 256 threads together? This was the trickiest point for Su Luo. Fuse spirit dance steps with wind system laws. I can only say this much. If it is still not enough, then the only thing waiting for you is to be sucked dry as a mummy. After Little Stone finished this hint of his, he closed his eyes to rest and continue his practice session. He directly tossed Su Luo to the back of his head. No matter how Su Luo shouted, he wouldn't respond. Su Luo thought about it for quite a while and could not figure it out. Fuse spirit dance steps with wind system laws? The problem was, she simply wasn't a wind system mage. Her understanding of wind system laws went in one ear and out the other, completely Greek to her awe. A light of inspiration suddenly flashed through Su Luo's mind. She wasn't a wind system mage, but Nangong Luyan was one. But don't know where Nangong Luyan had gone to right now, otherwise she would have asked him in more detail. Su Luo kept on thinking like this, but her foot still approached towards elder ancestor Mo slowly. Finally, she stopped helplessly in front of him. Elder ancestor Mo's gaze was chilly, face stone cold, stern and dignified. You. Pour your blood out. This time, elder ancestor Mo didn't directly grab Su Luo's wrist and directly bite into it. Rather, he took out a barrel from behind his back. Su Luo's jaw slackened in surprise. This wooden barrel was as tall as half a person. This damned old man actually wanted her to pour her blood into that? Even if all her blood was used up, it wouldn't fill the first half of the barrel, okay? Grandpa Mo, are you joking? Su Luo's eyes shone, eyes darting all over the place, searching for the best route to flee. While her eyes were searching for a route to flee, she actually discovered a very nice surprise. It turned out that Nangong Luyan was hiding on the roof tiles, not far up ahead. He crept over the glazed tiles, his body almost merging with the darkness of the night. If Nangong Luyan hadn't intentionally revealed a clue, Su Luo simply would not have discovered him. Their gazes met in midair, their eyes shining with words only they knew. This kind of tacit understanding, if their intentions weren't genuinely connected, simply would not be able to understand. Nangong Luyan took advantage of Elder Ancestor Mo's inattention and quickly formed a few hand signs. Su Luo blinked a few times inconspicuously, indicating that she understood. Old Man Mo saw Su Luo did not move, so he extended his hand to help out. Don't. I'll do it myself. Su Luo pulled out that sharp dagger from her sleeve, signaling Old Man Mo to stop. Old Man Mo's mental illness hadn't broke out yet, seeing Su Luo voluntarily cooperate, so he didn't say anything. Only his pair of eyes shone deeply just like a wolf's eyes, giving rise to fear in people's hearts. Su Luo unhurriedly gestured with the dagger, as if looking for a good spot. In fact, she was waiting for Nangong Luyan's move. She was waiting for Nangong Luyan to shift Elder Ancestor Mo's attention away. Otherwise, when she teleported and it got interrupted, her ending would be very tragic. Su Luo and Nangong Luyan's gazes met, and they smiled in tacit agreement. Suddenly, a hand grenade-shaped sphere shot straight at Elder Ancestor Mo's face. Su Luo was already prepared. At this moment, she pretended to be startled and shrieked, directly falling to the ground, as if paralyzed by fear. Elder Ancestor Mo was just about to curse this loathsome girl as a coward, but just at this moment, Su Luo's body disappeared into thin air, while that sphere charged directly towards Old Man Mo. Chapter 1274. Whether or not she could escape. 3. Without a doubt, this sphere was none other than the legendary Spirit Pinball. Ancestor Mo pinched the Spirit Pinball in his hand, just when he was picking it up doubtfully to examine it. One could only hear a loud bang sound. The Spirit Pinball had blown up. Smoke spread all over. Black smoke from a mushroom cloud dispersed, completely enveloping Elder Ancestor Mo. It was a 10th-ranked Spirit Pinball. If it was exchanged for a Commander-rank Spirit Pinball, then it might have some effect on Elder Ancestor Mo. But a 10th-ranked Spirit Pinball's force, for Elder Ancestor Mo, was just like a tickle. Although he was taken by surprise due to being enveloped by the explosion, but Elder Ancestor Mo didn't suffer any injuries. Of course, if Su Luo was blasted by the Spirit Pinball, her insignificant 8th-ranked body would certainly drop dead. Fortunately, her and Nangong Luyan's tacit agreement was completely in alignment. When the Spirit Pinball smashed over, she pretended to fall. During the fall, she launched her teleport skill again. When Elder Ancestor Mo wanted to chase after her, he was hindered by the explosion from the Spirit Pinball. Given such a short period of time, Su Luo had already opened her legs and ran, not even leaving a trace behind. Moreover, the explosion from the Spirit Pinball perfectly masked the fluctuation of space from Su Luo's teleport. So, if Elder Ancestor Mo wanted to find Su Luo again, he would need to expend a lot more effort. Elder Ancestor Mo cried out loudly in anger and wrecked the surrounding area. Pity, this exquisite and gorgeous library, under Elder Ancestor Mo's indiscriminate bombing, it became bands of smoke, disappearing into the long river of history. Let's not talk about Elder Ancestor Mo's rage, and talk about Su Luo. Having found an opportunity to teleport, Su Luo teleported directly onto the opposite rooftop, without any demur, bringing Nangong through a countless number of teleports. The two of them teleported more than a dozen kilometers away, before they had to stop to rest. Because Su Luo's teleportation skills had not steadied, moreover, teleportation consumed a lot of her mental strength. Although Su Luo's mental abilities were really strong, she could not endure such a drain, so she had to stop and rest. At this moment, the two of them sat on a huge rock, looking at each other with a smile. Phew, finally escaped. Just now, that old madman almost sucked my blood again. Su Luo folded back her sleeves, revealing slender, snow-white wrists. This look, Su Luo couldn't help but be surprised. Clearly, in less than 2 hours before, here, she had used a knife to cut across. That knife scar was ugly and terrifying. People wouldn't dare to look straight at it. Su Luo thought she would have lived with this ugly scar for the rest of her life. She never expected that when she looked, the skin was actually restored to its snowy, sparkling, and translucent state. One couldn't even see a bit of blemish. Isn't this too magical? Su Luo lifted her head up in surprise, her gaze traveling from her wrist to Nangong Liuyun's face. Silly girl. Your blood can revive the dead. How can it not heal such a small scar on yourself? You're underestimating your precious blood's abilities. Too much, Nangong Luyun, in a spoiling manner, tapped the girl's charming nose, with a soft smile lingering in his eyes. Mentioning this, Su Luo's mood immediately dropped down in a straight line, and she pouted her rosy, moist little mouth gloomily. That old madman had sucked almost half of my blood away. Really is such a pity. If you must know, just one drop of Su Luo's drop could extend a man's life by 10 years. Just now, so much blood. How precious should it be, The worst part was that old madman was Su Luo's enemy. The more Su Luo thought, the angrier she got, and she brandished her fists angrily, full of unwillingness. Must find an opportunity to kill that old madman, otherwise, this resentment in my heart won't be eliminated. Chapter 1275, Whether or not she could escape. 4. However, Su Luo also knew, to kill the old madman, it was only if her master Rongyun personally undertook the task, whereas if they, in the younger generation, ran into old madman, they could only flee to the end of the world. Whereas Beichen and Ziyan's? Su Luo lifted her eyes and looked at Nangong Luyun, who was playing with her hair leisurely and contentedly, and asked curiously, "Oh, they took Mo Yunfeng to fly kites." Nangong Liuyun's tone was casual as he replied offhandedly, "Fly kites? The three of them?" Su Luo's eyes opened wide in disbelief. Nangong Liuyun's hands crossed over his chest, and his eyebrows lifted up proudly. With those two irksome presents, he couldn't be affectionate with his family's treasured Luo girl. Now he had finally driven them away. Su Luo immediately reacted. The two of them brought Mo Yunfeng along when they ran, right? Aren't you worried? Beichen is only at the 8th rank. Ziyan is still only at 7th rank. Nangong Luyun patted his family's obedient darling's head and said leisurely, only through experiencing countless life and death situations would they be able to grow up quickly. Time doesn't wait for people. If they can't grow stronger fast, they will never keep up with us, and would eventually be eliminated. What Nangong Luyun didn't say, Su Luo, in fact, figured it out immediately. However, although these were the facts, Su Luo still felt bad about it. Don't worry, who didn't become strong like this? Nangong Luyun rubbed Su Luo's head and made a complete mess out of her hair. If possible, he also hoped to protect his darling Luo in a seamless way and raise her in a greenhouse and not let her experience any hardship. However, since she chose this highly ambitious path of a strong expert, even making all haste through trials and hardship, she could only press forward. This topic made the atmosphere somewhat grave. So Su Luo switched the topic. What were you doing just now? You came a little late. Nangong Luyun smiled mysteriously. Didn't you notice that the other elders had not chased over? Su Luo thought about it. Her eyes, then, were all smiles, so to say. It's all you're doing? What do you mean my doing? Why does it sound so awkward? Nangong Luyun was somewhat offended. Then the wise and military capable Your Highness Prince Jean, may I ask, in the end, What did you do? Those several elders' strength are not lacking. The weakest was still at the 10th rank and could exterminate them with a move of finger. The mysteries of heaven cannot be divulged. Having said this, Nangong Liuyun's eyes hooked into a mysterious smile and adhered strictly to his words, not saying anything else. Humph, humph. Don't say it, then don't say. Su Luo hadn't said the last half of her sentence, when suddenly, she felt a shiver down her spine. Now, Nangong Liuyun's face suddenly went ice-cold, eyes glittering like frost and snow. Their eyes met, and they could see the cold coming from the depths of the others' hearts in each other's eyes. Old Madman has chased over. Quickly run. Su Luo was still guessing when Nangong Liuyun had already set down the final conclusion. Damned old madman, originally. They thought they had gotten away from the old madman's pursuit. However, they hadn't even caught their breaths yet, and he chased over again. Su Luo cursed angrily in her heart. But there's nothing to be done about it. They had just played a trick on the old madman and provoked his rage. Now, who would dare to take on his rage? Nangong Liuyun thought about it, hugged Su Luo to him, and said in a low voice, "Continue regaining your mental strength. I'll carry you and run." Wait until Su Luo regained her mental strength. She could bring Nangong Liuyun through teleport. This was the two of them working together, the most effective and suitable plan. Chapter 1276. Whether or not she could escape. 5. Okay. Su Luo nodded her head, seriously. She didn't waste much words, directly closing her eyes, with her spirit flying into her space. She used the plentiful spirit energy in her space to restore her mental strength. Nangong Liuyun carried Su Luo on his shoulder and ran forward with flying speed. After several roads, his figure had already disappeared ahead. Just at this time, Elder Ancestor Mo's frantic figure appeared in that place. Picking up the faint spirit force on the stone, but with no soul in sight, Elder Ancestor Mo's anger exploded, his palm directly striking down. One could only hear the sharp sound of a wind knife slashing through the air. Soon after, the rock Su Luo and Nangong Liuyun had just sat on was split in half, disintegrating into fine powder. What's more serious was, this wind sword's mark directly extended to the ground, penetrated deeply into the ground. As a result of this wind sword from Elder Ancestor Mo, this part of the mountain was split into two, with a deep valley in between. Presumably, after a short period of time, it would be filled with rainwater and a stream would form. If Nangong Liuyun and Su Luo ran away a bit slower, right now, they would be buried by this newly formed stream. Elder Ancestor Mo's face was ashen, his limp muscles shaking slightly. Clearly, he was greatly angered. Just now, when that spirit pinball exploded, although it didn't hurt Old Man Mo, but it made him look battered and exhausted. Old Man Mo's gray hair was burned pitch black, with smoke on his face. The robes on his body were burned until only ripped strips were left here and there. The impressive Central Palace's elder ancestor now looked like a beggar that lived under a bridge. But this ancestor didn't seem to be aware of what a sorry figure he cut at this moment. He was solely focused on venting his anger. If he couldn't find that loathsome girl, then he wouldn't be able to drink her blood. Once Old Man Mo thought of this possibility, he would shout out in rage. He looked around and didn't know what senses he based on. He actually directly chased in the direction Nangong Liuyun disappeared to. After all, right now, there was still a huge disparity between Nangong Liuyun and Elder Ancestor Mo's strength, so very soon, Nangong Liuyun's figure could be seen in the air. Elder Ancestor Mo's eyesight was pretty good. At one glance, he saw Su Luo, who was on Nangong Liuyun's back. His heart rejoiced, and his eyes shone with excitement. He only knew that he could drink the tasty blood again. Although his head hurt after drinking it, however, not drinking it, his whole body would hurt. Nangong Liuyun felt a scorching gaze fixed on him, and he grumbled inwardly. Elder Ancestor Mo's speed was extremely fast, and he reached them in the blink of an eye. A madman. He definitely wouldn't shout for Nangong Luyan to put down the person like a normal person. Rather, he would directly forcibly snatch her away. Elder Ancestor Mo's face was gloomy. A pair of ice-cold eyes stared at Nangong Luyan. During this quick raid, an extremely horrifying strength started to condense in his palm. Nangong Luyan's heart cried, "Not good." Surging spirit strength was all utilized. A dense protective cover wrapped around him and Su Luo tightly. But his heart was very clear. Such a formidable attack. Even if his strength was completely restored, he would still be unable to withstand it. Now, the power in Elder Ancestor Mo's palm had reached its strongest strength. He smiled gloomily. This formidable strength hadn't exploded out yet, but people could already feel a faint pressure and suffocation. Elder Ancestor Mo, as an existence at the peak of the saint level on this continent, the people who could match his strength could be counted on one hand. How could Nangong Luyan from the younger generation withstand this? Chapter 1277. Whether or not she could escape. 6. Under such enormous pressure, Su Luo woke up. And just at this moment, an inexhaustible force like surging tide rolled over, exploding in an instant. This enormous strength nearly distorted the entire space around them. "Halt!" Su Luo shouted. But it was too late. What's done can't be undone, much less an attack that was thrown. This powerful palm strike attacked toward Su Luo. The protective cover Nangong Luyan condensed out, under Elder Ancestor Mo's strength as a practitioner at the summit, quietly cracked like a spider web. The enormous strength of the palm strike endlessly enveloped towards Su Luo. From Elder Ancestor Mo's perspective, only killing this loathsome girl would stop her from running. Only then would he be able to suck the blood from her body. Therefore, he didn't even think before directly using a heavy hand. Now, Su Luo felt as if her heart was being pinched tightly, and at that moment, she almost stopped breathing. The shadow of death enveloped towards her. At this moment, Su Luo finally realized what it was like to die. However, at this critical moment of life or death, Nangong Luyan forcibly turned his body around, putting himself in front of Su Luo. Looking helplessly at the surging, powerful palm strike smash fiercely towards Nangong Luyan, Su Luo's heart stopped its violent beating in a split second. After being hit, Nangong Luyan stumbled forward a few steps, his hands loosened, and Su Luo fell to the ground. Su Luo hurriedly got up, body immediately dashing up. Her hand helped support that tall and lean figure, a deeply worried expression shining from the depths of her eyes. Nangong Luyan wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, and faintly said, "I'm fine." Old Man Mo, this madman, seeing the first attack did not succeed, his second strike rushed over like the rolling tide, simply not giving them the chance to breathe. Nangong Luyan turned his body around and extended his arm. A strong power came from the center of his palm, this power meeting Old Man Mo's attack head-on. Su Luo watched this ghastly sight on the side. Nangong Luyan's strength hadn't been restored completely. How could he confront Old Man Mo's strength? How could he win? However, Su Luo felt faintly that something was not right. Because at this moment, Nangong Luyan's originally black as ink, dazzling star-like eyes, now had traces of being bloodshot. Its depths were reeking of blood, ice-cold like a demon from hell, like the arrogant king of heaven. It seemed as if Nangong Luyan's strength suddenly increased sharply, but how could this be? Just when Su Luo was still pondering over this in puzzlement, the two formidable powers met head-on. It exploded as if having been squeezed for a long time. Nangong Luyan took 3 steps back. Old Man Mo didn't move a bit, still standing in place. Nangong Luyan spit out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Old Man Mo had a relaxed posture. However, Nangong Luyan lifted his head up, the corner of his mouth lifting up into a charming demonic smirk. "You are not bad." Old Man Mo's eyebrows furrowed tightly. A junior from the younger generation actually dared to use such a tone to say, "You are not bad." These 3 words, this was simply being contemptuous of him. "Court death." Old Man Mo roared. His palm contained endless power and directly attacked towards Nangong Luoyun. This power was like an ice-cold water snake, entering and invading Nangong Liuyun's body from his mind. In Nangong Liuyun's blood-red eyes contained a raging murderous intent, even the corners of his mouth lifted up sinisterly. Worthy of being Central Palace's elder ancestor, after going mad, even his power increased by many folds. In this world, there weren't many people who could hurt him, but this old man Mo was able to do so. Chapter 1278. Whether or not she could escape. 7. Nangong Liuyun's bloody eyes were red. The originally pitch-black eyes were like two ignited burning little balls of fire. The bright blood-red eyes shone with a strange light. Now, a hard-to-describe violent power suddenly appeared from around Nangong Liuyun's body. Now, the feeling Nangong Liuyun gave off wasn't at the 10th rank, but as if he stood on equal grounds with old man Mo. That's right, it was as if the two were at the same saint level. How could this be? Even if Nangong Liuyun could cross over and fight higher ranks, now, his power was restored to the 9th rank. At most, he could harness powers at the 10th rank. How could he? Su Luo still couldn't understand after pondering in her heart. Now, Nangong Liuyun extended his right hand, the skin on his arm surging with a cyan light. A strange pattern was faintly discernible, a primitive ancient breath assaulting the senses. The two people's fists met, and it seemed as if the air had exploded, intangible waves, like a spider web, spreading in all directions. After, old man Mo's body flew backwards and ruthlessly hit the ground. Then, he suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. Nangong Liuyun also took a step back. He raised a hand to wipe away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Su Luo's shocked eyes looked at the slim and graceful Nangong Liuyun standing there. Seeing him standing there with his clothes floating around, like a noble god, no one dared to claim to be higher. How could he? Heavily wound elder ancestor Mo? However, seeing Nangong Liuyun's figure tottering on the verge of collapse, Su Luo hurriedly ran over to support him. Before Su Luo could ask anything, Nangong Liuyun told her in a low voice, "Quickly go." Elder ancestor Mo's body was now laying on the ground hurt. If they didn't go now, then when? Opportunities were fleeting. Nangong Liuyun coughed in a low voice, but from Su Luo's standpoint, she could see that his palm was pitch black, as if it was burned by a large fire. He was definitely seriously hurt. Su Luo didn't have time to think. Her eyes were red. With great difficulty, she resisted her rage that soared to the heavens and the pain that shattered her heart. She hugged Nangong Liuyun and directly teleported. Old man Mo watched, dumbfounded. A fully cooked duck flew away just like this? Elder ancestor Mo, naturally, was not reconciled, but he could only maintain a gloomy face and watch as they disappeared in place, and he couldn't chase after them. Because when their palms meet, Nangong Liuyun's palm contained the strong destructive power of the lightning element system. Moreover, this lightning element system also had poison. Old man Mo didn't check and was poisoned by Nangong Liuyun, so his strength was greatly affected. Even if old man Mo was not reconciled, he had no choice but to let Su Luo, the two of them, go. Now, Su Luo ran even more desperately. She didn't have time to ask much, and she didn't dare to stop. She used her all to bring Nangong Liuyun along and run. She firmly believed, the further away they were from old man Mo, the safer they would be. Although old man Mo didn't chase over just now, but Su Luo knew, the time set aside for them to flee wasn't that much, because once old man Mo's cultivation was restored, he would chase after them with his fastest speed. When Su Luo's mental strength was nearly used up, she had no choice but to stop. Laying Nangong Liuyun on the grass, Su Luo immediately grabbed the life-replenishing golden pill and celestial spirit water from her space, and fed it all to Nangong Liuyun. Right now, Nangong Liuyun's eyes were tightly closed, his face white as paper, with a gossamer of breath, as if he would stop breathing at any moment. Su Luo became more and more heartbroken. Her eyes' sockets were red. Suddenly, a light flashed through her mind, and she directly took out a dagger from her sleeve. Nangong Luyan had said that her blood was the best medicine under the heavens, capable of bringing the dead to life. Then, it should also be able to heal Nangong Liuyun's internal injuries, right? Su Luo didn't even have to think, and directly cut down on her wrist. Chapter 1279. Whether or not she could escape. 8. However, before she could cut down, her right hand was stopped by someone. Su Luo turned her eyes to look, her gaze meeting with Nangong Liuyun's. "You're awake?" Su Luo cried out from being pleasantly surprised, while she directly tossed the dagger to the ground. The corner of Nangong Liuyun's lips exhaustedly pulled into a smile. That unparalleled, handsome face was pale, with a sickly look that made people pity him even more. "Silly girl." Nangong Luyan extended his hand and patted Su Luo's head. "Who's the silly girl? You're the silly one. Just now, you almost scared me to death." Su Luo sniffed her nose and angrily said, Okay, it's this husband that is wrong. This husband will bow to you in apology. All right?" Nangong Liuyun's tone had a hint of teasing, as if he was not injured at all, and still teasing Su Luo as before. "A matter that's unfounded. Why shout about it? Quickly don't speak, and heal your wounds first." The more Su Luo spoke, the more worried she was. Now, Nangong Liuyun's face was white as snow, and didn't have a hint of blood. Seeing this made Su Luo's heart clench. "Do you have something to ask me?" Nangong Luyan pulled at the loose hair hanging down from Su Luo's forehead. Su Luo thought about it and finally asked, "You just wounded old man Mo. Why don't we just directly kill him, to avoid future troubles?" Who knew? Nangong Luyan only laughed and hooked Su Luo's nose. "In fact, the thing you want to ask the most is why my cultivation would break out at a crucial moment." He could even guess this correctly? Worthy of being the #1 in the world at being two-faced, treacherous, and cunning, His Highness Prince Jing. Su Luo snorted twice, but still had to admit it. "This is the second question, but you can answer the two questions together." Nangong Luyan smiled, but still told Su Luo the answer buried deep in his heart. "A very strong power is sealed in my body." Nangong Luyan sat up and hugged Su Luo to him, letting her lean into his chest, with his chin pressed on top of her head. He paused and then continued to say, "This power is very formidable, but it also has huge aftereffects." "What aftereffects?" Su Luo asked with deep concern. "It's hard to say. For example, back then when I first used it because my body was essentially too weak, and this power was really too strong, that every month on the night of the full moon," Nangong Luyan didn't finish speaking and Su Luo had already understood. Every month on the full moon, Nangong Liuyun's body would become weak, and both legs would hurt unbearably. Reportedly, only when she reached the level of Grandmaster Apothecary would she be able to cure his illness. So it turned out to be the aftereffect from him using this power for the first time. Nangong Luyan, as a prince of unsurpassed talent. In the end, what kind of desperate straits would compel him to use this power? Su Luo's eyes moved, but she didn't ask out loud. The scar that Nangong Luyan hid in his heart. If he didn't want to say it, why should she go to uncover it? However, Nangong Luyan seemed to be in the mood for conversation. He started to tell Su Luo the truth of the event on that day, which was buried in the dust of history. Nangong Luyan had a faint grass fragrance on him that smelled good, but the story he told Su Luo made her heart clench tightly. In fact, the story was very simple. It boiled down to just a drama of the imperial harem, striving for favor. At that time, Nangong Liuyun's mother was the emperor's most favored, treasured concubine. That year, the emperor openly granted an edict, bestowing her with the title treasured concubine, showing how much he favored her. But it was also because of the emperor's affection that made the treasured concubine suffer the unhappy fate of beautiful woman being beheaded. Chapter 1280. What path to take? 1. At that time, Nangong Liuyun's mother was the emperor's favorite treasured concubine. That year, the emperor openly bestowed the word treasure to her. It could be seen how much he loved treasured concubine. However, it was also because of this love from the emperor that made treasured concubine suffer the unhappy fate of beautiful women that was beheaded. Treasured concubine was so favored at that time that she was in charge of the imperial harem. Her influence was without equal, for her Emperor Jing didn't even want any other palace concubines. So, the two of them lived the peaceful life of a romantic couple, but a lifetime of being a pair. How could this be achieved in the royal family? At that time, treasured concubine became the thorn in the eyes and ears of the concubines in the harem and the ministers of the imperial court. Finally, they joined together and caused the death of treasure concubine. But unfortunately for them, this matter was seen by the underaged Nangong Luyun. Nangong Luyun saw with his own eyes his mother being dishonored and meeting with a violent death. Under the pressure of being about to crumble, he incited the strange power sealed in his body. Nangong Liuyun's powers instantly grew and exploded out, and he killed all the concubines and powerful families that participated in this plot. He also exterminated their entire family. His Highness, who was barely 5 years old, looked like an Azura from hell, vicious and ruthless. At that time, the entire imperial capital flowed with blood nonstop for 3 days. That time, Emperor Jing was completely stupefied. The entire capital was stupefied and was scared to the extreme by the very young Nangong Luyun. 5 years old, and you killed so many people? Su Luo gave him a thumbs up in approval, much more awesome than me at that age. The 5-year-old Su Luo hadn't entered the assassin organization. At most, she was playing with ants under a tree. Nangong Liuyun's colored glass-like eyes shone with a deep cold light. He rubbed the hair on Su Luo's head. You don't feel this kind of person is very scary? 5 years old, and exterminated the 3 powerful families of that time in the capital? Su Luo firmly shook her head. People don't offend me. I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll return it 100-fold to them. Moreover, the you at that time who was controlled by such a strange power was also involuntary awe. It's no wonder that those people in the capital were so afraid of Nangong Luyun. It's no wonder that Emperor Jing also didn't really dare offend Nangong Liuyun's bottom line. So it turned out that the root was here awe. The image of little Nangong showing off his power appeared in Su Luo's mind. She felt he was already formidable, but also gave her a faint sad feeling. He was only 5 years old, and was forced to become a homicidal maniac devil. It's no wonder his temperament afterwards would become more and more vicious and merciless. However, so what if it's like that? He was cruel and unscrupulous to everyone under the heavens, but as long as he was totally devoted to her, Su Luo, it was enough. Afterwards, how did you preserve your life? Su Luo, full of heartache, caressed Nangong Liuyun's sharp and clear silhouette. Her Nangong was so small at that time and also killed so many people, and everyone took him as a little demon. How could they easily allow him to continue to live on? It may be assumed he must have experienced something that shocked one to the core. Seeing the heartache Su Luo accidentally revealed in her eyes for him, Nangong Luyun smiled happily. His long arm extended out, imprisoning his little girl in his embrace. He placed his chin on top of her head. Recalling this part of his suffering, he originally thought that he would bury this deeply for the rest of his life, never dredging it up to see the light of the day. Originally, he thought recalling this would make him want to die from the pain, but with this little guy at his side, Nangong Luyun felt that this segment of memories was like part of history that he turned over. This made him feel relaxed, as if being relieved from a heavy burden. He hugged Su Luo tightly and told her what happened afterwards. At that time, there really were many ministers that proposed, saying this child's heart schemes were very ruthless. After growing up, might not be fortunate for Western Jing. He must quickly be strangled in the cradle to avoid provoking trouble that would destroy Western Jing. From left to right, people made it difficult for Emperor Jing. When he didn't know what to do, all of a sudden, a godlike figure dropped from the sky. Chapter 1281. What path to take to that person? Could it be Purgatory Cities? Master? Su Luo asked curiously. At that time, Master came to the capital to look for someone. But he didn't find that person, so finally he took me back. Nangong Liuyun's expression revealed a faint smile. Clearly, he was very close to his master. Su Luo thought about this little Nangong when he was trapped in desperate straits, with his birth father looking on without lifting a finger. Only the master of Purgatory City landed from the sky and saved him from being surrounded by enemies. Probably, in Nangong's view, this master's position was more important to him than his birth father. Su Luo recalled the tangled relationship between her mother and the master of Purgatory City. Suddenly, a light bulb went on in her mind. Your master went to the capital to find someone? Nangong Liuyun's nose sniffed the faint, delicate fragrance from Su Luo's body. His eyes were soft with an intoxicating smile on his face. A pity master had searched for so many years and still hadn't found that person. Who was that elder looking for? Su Luo's heart had a faint guess. Nangong Luyun smiled even deeper. It ought to be the daughter goddess Yan Hua left behind in this world. Pfft. Su Luo nearly split out a mouthful of water. What did you say? The daughter goddess Yan Hua left behind in this world. Nangong Luyun laughingly looked at Su Luo, his dark red thin lips hooked into a demonically charming smile. Then do you know who I am? Su Luo's slender white finger pointed at her own nose and asked in a deadpan manner. Who are you again? Nangong Luyun pretended not to know. Looking for a beating. You clearly know I'm the person your teacher is looking for. Su Luo slapped his shoulder. Ha ha ha. Nangong Luyun let out a candid laughter. His long and thin finger hooked Su Luo's nose. Luo girl, at that time, you let me have your opportunity to go to Purgatory City. For this lifetime, I will protect you well. Protect you forever and be loyal to you. Truth be told, if at that time, Purgatory City's master found Su Luo, naturally, he would not do more and take Nangong Luyun away. At that time, I was only 2 years old and didn't understand anything. A great pity, such a great opportunity was snatched away by you for nothing. Otherwise, right now, I would be a super strong expert without rival. Su Luo pretended to be hopelessly depressed and wrinkled her nose. Seeing this little girl's nose wrinkled into a ball, Nangong Luyun suddenly felt it was funny. He pinched the little girl's nose. Foolish miss, do you know what my master said when he took me away? Then what did that elder say? Su Luo fiddled with the hair on Nangong Liuyun's shoulder and casually asked a sentence. That elder. 3 black lines appeared on Nangong Liuyun's forehead. His master was 100% a beautiful male evildoer. But in this girl's mouth, actually became an elder. However, letting Luo girl think he was elderly was also good. Nangong Luyun beamed with smiles as he raised an eyebrow. That elder, his elder said. He didn't find a daughter, but could personally groom a son-in-law. To nurture one himself would make him feel much more assured than finding one from outside. Nangong Luyun provocatively and in a devilishly charming manner lifted up Su Luo's bright and tapered chin. So Luo girl, are you satisfied with the son-in-law your father personally groomed? Immediately, Su Luo's face was full of black lines. Didn't expect that master of Purgatory City's way of thinking was so far-reaching. To actually take the measurement of a 2-year-old little brat at that time and give her a maid-to-order husband. Could his elder be my dad? Su Luo expressed her disbelief. I think that elder must have bestowed that title on himself, right? According to the old emperor of Western Ling's description at that time, her beyond beautiful and honorable mother who attracted bees like honey didn't even seem to see the Purgatory City's master as a potential match. Chapter 1282. What path to take 3. Whether he is your dad or not, this question you ought to ask your mother. Nangong Luyun let out a cough. Su Luo suddenly was somewhat nervous and struggled free from his embrace. With deep concern over her face, she asked, "What's wrong? Did your internal injuries flare up again?" Nangong Luoyun once again coughed several times, unable to suppress it, at an angle Su Luo could not see. Specks of blood went into his sleeves. No problem, the injury is not serious. Nangong Luoyun's expression was the same, with the same smile that was dazzling as the cherry blossoms in March. Able to endure such a berserk palm strike from that old madman, how can it not be serious? Do you take me for a fool? Su Luo unhappily glared at him. Quickly let me have a look at the condition of the injury. Without demur, Su Luo directly peeled off Nangong Luoyun's clothes. On the pure white as jade chest, a pitch-black as ink palm print was clearly displayed. It was a shockingly horrible sight to see. Su Luo lightly touched the palm print, although Nangong Luoyun still continued to smile. A thin layer of sweat was on his forehead. Still saying there's no problem. Su Luo really wanted to fiercely pinch him, but also hated for him to feel pain, so had no choice but to drop it. Su Luo glared at him in displeasure. Do we need to stay here to heal your injury? Nangong Luoyun rubbed her hair and scanned the surroundings once through. He shook his head while smiling. This is not the place for healing. We need to find a safe place. I'm afraid not long from now, that old madman will chase over. A safe place? Su Luo slanted her head and thought, the so-called most dangerous place was the safest place. But where was this most dangerous place? For certain, we can't go to Central Palace. If they go back, it would be strange if that old madman didn't discover them. Then temporarily, we'll go to the Imperial Palace. Nangong Luoyun was all smiles, his tone extremely careless. Northern Mo's Imperial Palace? Su Luo stroked her chain and carefully considered for a while. Then, she felt that this idea was really clever. Okay, let's go to Northern Mo's Imperial Palace. However, there is still a day and night's travel distance from here to Northern Mo's Imperial Palace. Within this period of time, it might not be too peaceful. Nangong Luoyun looked off to the distance. His gaze seemed deep and far away. In the depth of the night, they shone brightly like stars. Let's go now. Su Luo pulled Nangong Luoyun up. After resting just now, Su Luo's mental strength had returned to full strength. So, she could use teleport once again. Considering old man Mo that madman could catch up at any time, Su Luo did not delay. She pulled Nangong Luoyun up and quickly disappeared in place. Fortunately, after going through the 9 different palace halls, Su Luo understood the true essence of teleport. Otherwise, she would not have been able to do those things at Central Palace. Moreover, she wouldn't have been able to run using this route. That evening, the night was very dark. The two people unconsciously had already run several hundred kilometers and entered a border town called Luoyang City. Luoyang City was located at the center of Northern Mo and Central Palace. Many people who cultivated lived here. The people were usually intrepid. Without military presence, the probability for committing crimes of robbery and murder were very high. Before Su Luo's mental strength became empty, they arrived at an inn in Luoyang City. Su Luo and Nangong Luoyun swaggered in and ordered a room. They went into a room labeled with the word sky. In any case, the old madman chasing them definitely wouldn't use hidden forces. There was no difference to entering openly and above board versus sneaking in. That night Su Luo and Nangong Luoyun sat down cross-legged separately. Nangong Luoyun rotated his powers to heal, whereas Su Luo was single-mindedly studying the true essence of teleport. Su Luo had asked Nangong Luoyun the matter of wind element laws. Nangong Luoyun, from easy to hard, completely explained it once through to her. Although Su Luo hadn't understood everything, however, with her photographic memory, she retained everything in her mind to slowly ponder over to understand it. Chapter 1283. What Path to Take. 4. Wind Strength Speed. Teleport, the spirit able to travel 500 kilometers. These words appeared nonstop in Su Luo's mind, and she muttered these words continuously. How to fuse this? Where was the starting point? The night became increasingly darker. The cold air outside was even heavier. Suddenly, a light went on in Su Luo's head. If speed was to soar to the fastest point, then there would be wind after images. What if it was even faster than that? So fast that there weren't even after images? Aw. Just when Su Luo was about to grasp the critical point suddenly, a layer of shadow enveloped Su Luo's heart. Nangong Luyan, who was just in the midst of healing, abruptly opened his eyes. His pair of eyes were bright and clear like snow swords, filled entirely with speckles of cold light. Old madman has chased over, Nangong Luyan calmly said. Wasn't he seriously injured? How could he chase over so quickly? Su Luo suddenly stood up, a thread of anxiety on her face. Nangong Luyan helplessly looked at Su Luo. He drank your blood. It would be strange if his injuries didn't quickly heal. Having heard what was said, Su Luo's face immediately collapsed. She frowned, depressed. So it could be said, the reason why his injuries would heal so quickly is all because my blood saved him. This conclusion really made one collapse. Nangong Luyan nodded his head. The matter is just so. Su Luo gloomily wanted to run into a wall, so it could be said this old madman's future injuries will also heal this quickly? Yes. Nangong Luyan rubbed Su Luo's head. This time, the psychological blow that struck his little girl wasn't light. In fact, not only was the psychological blow to Su Luo not light, she wished she could smash her own head with a fist. She could let having her blood sucked out go, but after old madman drank her blood, his body actually became stronger and able to restore its strength. Then, in the future, who could kill him? Then you also drink some Su Luo rolled up her sleeve, revealing a snow-white clear wrist. Foolish girl. Nangong Luyan pulled her hand to a stop and unrolled the sleeves she just rolled up. He smiled and said, my injury is not the same as the old madman's. You shouldn't waste your heartfelt thought on this. Su Luo insisted, but Nangong Luyan also was persistent in refusing. In the end, it was still Nangong Luyan who patted her head. Let's not talk about this first. If we don't go now, wait for later, then old man Imo would have chased over. Then, let's first leave, then talk. Su Luo pulled Nangong Luyan and was about to teleport, but this time, Nangong Luyan stopped her. One could only see his pretty sword-like brows crease as he slowly said, Old man Imo can find us time after time. I suspect this may be connected to the fluctuations in space when you teleport. It can't be, right? Su Luo opened her eyes wide and looked at him with disbelief. It turned out that not only did she give old man Mo an indestructible body, she even left a little tail for old man Mo to chase after them to kill them. This is only a guess, so this time, we won't teleport. We'll take a horse carriage. Nangong Luyan made the prompt decision. Okay. Su Luo nodded at once. Consequently, the two of them jumped out the window and found an empty place. Su Luo released the dragon-scaled horse from her space. At that time, when they went to the 9 different palace halls of Xian's Wood residence, Su Luo and Nangong Luyan rode in the carriage pulled by this dragon-scaled horse. Afterwards, it was not convenient to let the dragon-scaled horse follow them into the Xian's Wood residence, so Su Luo placed the dragon-scaled horse in her space. Nangong Luyan also had a storage ring. However, he was not a space mage, so his storage ring could not hold living things, resulting in the dragon-scaled horse being raised in Su Luo's space up until now. This period of time, the dragon-scaled horse had continuously lived in Su Luo's space. Suddenly being brought out, it was still not too used to being outside. Looking at the dragon-scaled horse with bright fur in front of her, Su Luo was slightly startled. Why was it that she felt that this dragon-scaled horse was somewhat different compared to before? Chapter 1284. What path to take? 5. That space of yours is not bad. The dragon-scaled horse actually was promoted 2 ranks in succession. Nangong Luyan smilingly shook his head. Then, he stroked the dragon-scale horse's head. Su Luo finally remembered. While it was in her space, the dragon-scaled horse, very much lacking integrity, fawned over the little divine dragon. Finally, The little divine dragon, also lacking integrity, supplied the dragon-scaled horse with an endless amount of celestial spirit water to drink. Originally, just taking out a small bottle of celestial spirit water would cause a sensation, but the little divine dragon magnanimously and boldly gave an unlimited supply to the dragon-scaled horse. It would be strange if the dragon-scaled horse had not advanced. However, to advance 2 ranks in succession was also because it had good talent. After the dragon-scaled horse appeared, it rubbed intimately against Su Luo, tossing its original owner to the back of its head. Nangong Luoyun flicked its head in annoyance. How did this king raise such an easily deceived thing? Who told me to have good food and good things to play here? Su Luo tenderly strokes the dragon-scaled horse's head. The dragon-scaled horse nodded its head in a deadly serious manner, expressing that what Su Luo said was true. Nangong Luoyun was angered to the point of laughing. It's getting late. Let us set off quickly without delay. Nangong Luoyun pulled Su Luo and turned to enter the horse carriage. After the two had sat steadily, the dragon-scaled horse gave a faint whinny, then opened its hoofs to dash forward. In the quiet night, the sound of horse hooves were especially loud and clear. The dragon-scaled horse's speed seems to be a lot faster. Su Lu lifted up the carriage curtain, looking at the structures that were constantly going by, saying in surprise, "Yes, it is faster by 3-fold compared to before." Nangong Luoyun's head leaned against the carriage wall, closing his eyes to rest. Such quick speed, this dragon-scaled horse advanced just in time. Su Luo praised a sentence. However, that unease in her heart became stronger and stronger. When the dragon-scaled horse traveled to the South City Gate, suddenly the entire Luoyang city seemed to be enveloped by a formidable attack, like they were ants in a ball, unable to control their own lives. Under this huge pressure, inside this entire Luoyang city, the people that were fast asleep woke up one after another, at a loss, not knowing what's going on. Not good. Old madman is chased over. Su Luo cried out in alarm and stood up. Nangong Luoyun's sharp eyebrows knitted slightly, pulling Su Luo to sit down. Then he slowly shook his head. Sit tight. Afterwards, he gave a soft whistle. After the dragon-scaled horse heard the whistle, its pace suddenly soared. Quickly, the only thing that was left on the street were gray afterimages. When one opened their eyes again, they were no longer able to capture the dragon-scaled horse's silhouette. Very quickly, the dragon-scaled horse had arrived at the South City Gate. However, the city gate was locked up tightly, and the dragon-scaled horse simply couldn't go through. A row of soldiers stood in the tower of the city gate. The captain of these soldiers saw the carriage rushing towards the gate and shouted loudly, "Who has come?" Inside the dragon-scaled horse carriage, there was no sound. The captain of the soldiers' voice had a trace of cold harshness. The city gate is already closed. No one is allowed to go out of the city. It was only because he saw the dragon-scaled horse and the carriage, which was not ordinary, that his tone carried a trace of respect. If it was someone else, they would already have been shot dead with arrows. Just at this moment, the old madman floated in midair, roaring nonstop. "Loathsome girl, come out." This roar was like thousands of knives and thunder combined. Then, it exploded with a loud rumble. This thunderous sound rang loudly between heaven and earth. The pitiful Luoyang city, just like this, met with an absurd calamity. Suddenly, the entire Luoyang city seemed to have encountered the rare earthquake that came every 1,000 years. The entire Luoyang city shook and the buildings swayed, then broke into fine powder. A countless number of people sleeping in their rooms were directly buried alive by the collapsed buildings. Chapter 1285. What Path to Take 6. Many of the more nimble people rushed out of their rooms and ran into the street. Momentarily, the entire Luoyang city shook like a sheet. Luoyang City was also known as a city of crime. Everyone here had all violated laws somewhere else, and afterwards fled here to avoid people chasing to kill them. Able to live in Luoyang City, there were very few that didn't flout the law. But at the same time, able to flee to this city of crime, it could be said their strength also wasn't bad. Therefore, when Old Madman's roar was about to make the entire Luoyang city collapse, a lot of people still were able to run out. Loathsome girl, come out, come out! The Old Madman floated there in midair, looking all around, as if trying to find Su Luo's figure to admonish her. Su Luo inwardly complained in her heart. She lowered her voice and said to Nangong Luyan, "We won't be discovered by the Old Madman, right?" Nangong Luyan shook his head, taking advantage of the chaos right now. "We must run out without delay." Nangong Liuyun's long, slender finger, with pronounced joints, lifted up the carriage curtain. Looking at the towering city gate before him, he frowned slightly. Because the Old Madman had entered from the North Gate, so the North Gate was affected the most by the attack. Nearly more than half of the city had collapsed into ruins. Therefore now, a countless number of people were all running toward the South Gate. However, the soldiers guarding on the city wall, no matter what, wouldn't agree to opening the city gates. Retreat backwards, join together to meet the enemy. Who dares to flee? An arrow awaits them. The captain of the soldiers raised his right hand. Behind him was a squadron of archers ready to fire. Each and every one of them had their bows pulled back with an arrow inserted, taking the posture of preparing to shoot. At this time, if Su Luo and Nangong Luyan stepped out to retrieve the dragon-scale horse, then jump on top of the city gate and fly out of the South Gate, this tentative plan could be executed successfully. Although it was a bit more time-consuming and took a great deal of effort. However, with so many people around, with the dragon-scaled horse received back into space, wouldn't this target be too big? Nangong Luyan frowned just because of this. Su Luo smiled and said, "Look carefully, now, I'll perform a magic trick for you to see." One could only see Su Luo wave her hand, and nothingness of space enveloped the dragon-scaled horse. She gave a low grunt, quickly rush out. Up ahead was a very thick wall, with such a fast rushing speed. If they didn't die, it would still end with them being badly bruised. As a result, when the surrounding people saw this horse with strange dragon scales rushing forward with flying speed, each and every one of them had a shocked expression. Was this horse scared till it went crazy? It ought to be. Otherwise, why would it rush heedlessly forward? Over there is the city wall. Ah. In fact, it became crazy from being scared. However, that's not bad if it can ram a small hole. We can also take this opportunity to run out. During a time when numerous people were discussing this, the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a slight smile. With nothingness of space enveloping them, how could the dragon-scaled horse have an accident? At that time in the demon cave, she and Bei Qining were both locked inside, unable to get out. It was because she understood nothingness of space at that time did the two of them then find an opportunity to come out. Now, along with Su Luo's cultivation being promoted, nothingness of space had also gradually enlarged. Now, she could already protect the entire horse carriage. The dragon-scaled horse rushed forward with flying speed, its speed soaring to the peak. The pitiful dragon-scaled horse didn't know that Su Luo's nothingness of space would be so easy to use. Its striving so hard was all because of its respect and trust in its master and master's lady. Wow, 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 this horse has gone crazy. It really is about to ram into the wall. Oh heavens! Who can stop this horse? Some people screamed loudly, and there were also people who looked on gloomily. Chapter 1286. What path to take? 7. Because after the dragon-scaled horse died, this horse carriage would be very useful to everyone. Just when some people were crying out in alarm, while some rejoiced in others' misfortune, the dragon-scaled horses had smashed into the wall. Everyone was taken aback when not only didn't the dragon-scaled horse smash the wall until its head broke with blood flowing, instead, seemingly out of nowhere, it disappeared in place. Oh heavens! What just happened? Where is that horse? How is it that it disappeared? A lot of people rubbed their eyes in disbelief. It seems it had passed through to the other side. Impossible. You think this wall is made from paper paste? How could it pass through? While everyone was discussing this, the soldiers on the wall were also dumbstruck. However, they stood on top of the city gate. Naturally, they had a panoramic view of the scene on both sides.
Wow.
What is that? Soldier A saw a black that wasn't far away, and his eyes were opened very wide. It seems like that horse carriage with the strange design from just now. Soldier B cried out in fear. In the end, what's going on? Soldier C asked incredulously. Everyone was all speechless. What happened? Only ghosts knew what really happened. They didn't open the city gate, and the city wall wasn't broken. Nor did they see them drill underground or fly. However, they actually directly passed through the wall, then ran far away. This must be the strangest damn thing under the heavens. Moreover, it happened in front of everyone's eyes. Just when everyone was confused, disaster continuously broke out nonstop. Old Madman was worthy of being Old Madman. After his bad temper started, he was completely unconcerned with anything. He disposed of everything without any qualms. This city of criminals was already a malignant tumor to the local government. The sovereign of Northern Mo wished he could pull out this malignant tumor by the root. But because nobody living in this city was an ordinary person, therefore, not only did he fail again and again, he even sacrificed a lot of soldiers because of this city. Until later, when Northern Mo's sovereign really had no alternative, he finally handed Luoyang City over to these criminals. Also because of this, the entire Northern Mo would constantly suffer trouble from this city of criminals, troubling and vexing the master of Northern Mo endlessly. If the master of Northern Mo was to know what Su Luo did today, very likely he would award her Best Fresh Talent Award. After Su Luo escaped, the entire Luoyang City sank into an abyss of suffering. Elder Ancestor Mo, this old madman, he couldn't find Su Luo, and therefore was overflowing with anger. The entire Luoyang City was destroyed by him until nothing was left. The disaster gradually extended from the north gate and finally to the south gate. Wherever the old madman went, everything behind him was an area of ruins. Anyone seeing it would be shocked. Under the south gate, those people's feeling of nervousness suddenly increased. Quickly open the city gate. Open the city gate, otherwise, we'll set fire to the city. If you don't open the city gate, your daddy, I will kill every one of you in the next minute. Under the city gate, one after another, angry voices yelled, converging together into a mess, the drone of these voices echoing. There were even smart people who recalled that strange horse that rushed out the city gate just now and thought maybe that wall had a mechanism that opened a hidden door. Therefore, they also rushed forward with flying speed. But a pity, they directly smashed into the wall until they were badly bruised and bloody. There were those who were even more seriously hurt, directly passing out from the hit.
Fuck.
It's a scam. This city wall simply doesn't have a mechanism to a hidden door. Then how did that horse just go through? Only ghosts would know. Maybe there are ghosts that can really punch a hole and go through walls, okay? They couldn't find a reason to explain it, so they pushed the reason onto the bodies of demons and ghosts. Chapter 1287. What Path to Take? 8. The soldiers guarding the north gate of the city felt an approaching disaster, and a cowardly feeling couldn't help but rise in their hearts. Moreover, the people gathered under the city gates continuously bellowed out protests. There were even courageous ones who climbed up the city gates time and time again. Although they were being shot down incessantly by arrows, as the number of people grew more numerous, the city gates were bound to break from the pressure. In the end, they were unable to withstand the pressure and could only open the city gates. However, for the gates to open at this time, it was already too late. This was because the old madman who had blown his top had already killed his way here. The old madman's whole body gave off an intense, formidable pressure, the heavy stench of blood, and a scathing killing intent. At this time, the more the old madman killed, the braver he got. As if he felt this venting game was very fun and extremely satisfying. The old madman appeared on top of the city wall. The moment he appeared, however, made the crowd of people cry out in alarm. Oh, heavens! Why is it him? How could it be? How is this possible? Amidst the crowd, a person cried out loudly in surprise, continuously shouting that it was impossible. Who is that? Could it be that you recognize him? Hurry up and say who he is. The person who just shouted was immediately encircled by the crowd, who threatened him loudly. He is the elder ancestor of Central Palace, a saint rank expert. What? The elder ancestor of Central Palace? What enmity does Central Palace have with this city of crime? Why does he want to wipe out the entire city? Maybe he accepted a commission from the imperial family? Otherwise, how could they let elder ancestor to personally come and take action? That vile Northern MO, that hateful Central Palace. Defeat Northern MO, defeat Central Palace. For a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic, with countless voices roaring loudly. The old madman's eyes were full of blood. They were like searchlights, sweeping back and forth, scanning the crowd. However, very quickly, he was disappointed because the aura he was looking for wasn't in the crowd. Ever since he drank that girl's blood, it was as if the old madman had become an addict. If he didn't drink her blood, then he would feel itchy all over his body. It was so unbearable that he almost collapsed. So, even though the old madman was injured, he still wouldn't give up on chasing after them closely. However, just earlier, there were still traces of the loathsome girl's aura. Yet now, not even a little bit remained. Strange. Just at this moment, a brick was thrown from the crowd, smashing towards the back of the city wall. Moreover, the target was this elder ancestor MO. I'll smash you dead. You lunatic. This daddy's entire family was killed by you. This daddy has unfinished business with you. However, this person didn't know that his moment of angry action would actually bring a drowning calamity upon everyone present. Elder Ancestor MO waved a hand, and that brick quickly changed directions, heading back to where it had come from. Moreover, that action by the old madman only looked like a casual wave of the hand, but it actually carried an endlessly formidable pressure and killing intent. With a mere wave from the old madman, those people were like tarot cards, falling down one by one. Additionally, blood flowed out from the 7 apertures of everyone's face, and they died with their eyes open. At this time, the old madman's strength had become a step stronger than before. If Su Luo knew it was just because of her blood that let the old madman grow even more powerful day by day, very likely, she might wring her hands until she coughed up blood. A pity Su Luo didn't know that because they had stayed for a night in the city of criminals, the entire city would then completely disappear in the long river of history. At this moment, the two of them were riding in the dragon-scaled horse carriage which had increased its speed to the peak and was speeding towards the northern MO Imperial Palace. What awaited them was another legendary tale of countless perils. Maybe it was because Nangong Luyan guessed correctly and Su Luo didn't use teleportation, so all along this journey, the old madman still hadn't caught up. However, in order to prepare for all eventualities, the two of them still made up their minds to hide for a short period of time in the northern MO Imperial Palace. They would wait for Nangong Luyan to recover from his injuries before considering their next move. Chapter 1288, Northern MO Imperial Palace 1. On the entire journey, Su Luo and Nangong Luyan actually didn't find a trace of the old madman. The two of them safely arrived at the Northern MO Imperial capital. Before they entered the city, Su Luo and Nangong Luyan got off the dragon-scaled horse and directly put it in her space. After all, this dragon-scaled horse was truly too famous in the city of criminals. No one knew, in the end, how many people would run out from the city of criminals, whether someone would recognize the dragon-scaled horse. In order to be prepared for all eventualities, the two people made full preparations outside the city. Let's go. Nangong Liuyun's eyes contained intoxicatingly soft waves. He led Su Luo and went towards the tightly guarded north city gates. Su Luo half-supported him and asked with deep concern, "How are your injuries?" Using the faint light of dawn, Su Luo carefully observed Nangong Liuyun's complexion. After going through 1 day and 1 night of recuperation and smoothing his breathing, his complexion looked somewhat better than before. It was no longer scarily pale. "Relax. I'm in the midst of recovering step by step." Nangong Liuyun's lips hooked up, and he laughed. Seeing this little appearance of his Luo girl's deeply worried expression, his mood became very good. At that time in the 9 different palace halls, Su Luo had used more than half of her blood to cover Nangong Liuyun's body in a moment of desperation. It caused his body to change completely, therefore his recovery speed was really fast, not inferior in any aspect when compared to that old madman. The two people arrived on foot to the city gates and saw a long dragon-like line of people queuing there, and Su Luo frowned slightly. This was the Northern Mo imperial capital. The security at the city gates was extremely tight. A diplomatic note was required for entry and exit. People without a diplomatic note would be arrested on the spot. Back then, Su Luo and Nangong Luyan didn't actually come through the imperial capital. Instead, they had gone across from the edges of the dark forest and directly entered the snowfield plateau. Should we wait till dark before going in? Su Luo watched the stream of people as each of them was inspected, and her eyes half-narrowed. Nangong Liuyun's thin lips hooked into a smile carrying a hint of mysteriousness. "Silly girl, this king brought you here, so how could this king let you wait?" "Waiting, that's other people's matter." "Your Highness Prince Jing," such big tone. "However, this isn't the Eastern Ling. Moreover, as far as I know, Northern Mo and Eastern Ling have always had a bad relationship. There were often times of friction at the border. Who knows when a war will start up?" Su Luo smilingly hooked her arm into his. She raised her little face. Her pitch-black eyes blinked, dazzling like the stars in the night sky. "Just follow me." Nangong Luyan led Su Luo along, strutting towards the city gates. This walk of theirs immediately gave rise to spirited discussions. "Hey, you guys, line up. You can't cut the line here." "Maybe they have privileges, ah." "Privileges, my ass. Even if they're a third-ranked high official, they still have to line up obediently, understand? This is our Northernmost rule." That feeble-minded pair, they must be from another place, right? Strutting like that, wanting to walk the privileged route. They'll definitely be arrested and thrown in jail. What a pity, ah. You guys look, the man is incomparably handsome, while the woman is a beauty that doesn't exist under the heavens. Oh, a pity, ah, a pity. These spirited discussion naturally reached Su Luo's ears. Su Luo took a look at Nangong Luyan. Nangong Luyan looked ahead, with the corners of his lips hooking into a demonically enchanting smile. Su Luo found it even more difficult to understand. The two of them were fleeing, right? This was wanting to enter the imperial palace and hide, right? If so, shouldn't the two of them be keeping a low profile? With Nangong Luyan being so high profile like this, was it truly okay? However, seeing Nangong Liuyun's appearance of having a hidden card up his sleeve, it was hard for Su Luo to say something. Before long, Nangong Luyan had led Su Luo along and came directly to a stop before the city gates. Chapter 1289, Northern Mo Imperial Palace. 2. No one is allowed to cut the line. You guys hurry, go back to line up. The guard soldiers saw an immortal couple standing before them, and their initially impatient expressions vanished in a flash. Their expressions and tones also became a lot more courteous. However, Nangang Luoyun and Su Luo stood where they were, absolutely having no intention to leave. You guys quickly go back. Otherwise, if our captain finds out, you'll be arrested. This soldier had good eyes. He knew that these two people shouldn't be provoked, so he urged them in a nice tone and manner instead. Talk about Chow Chow and Chow Chow will appear, 1. Right at this moment, the captain, whom Soldier A had spoken of, arrived. This captain's pair of eyes cast a sidelong glance at Nangang Luoyun. When he saw Su Luo, his eyes clearly lit up. Nangang Luoyun's eyes rose slightly, a hint of chilliness flashing across his eyes. Without waiting for this captain to speak, Nangang Luoyun immediately took out a black wooden tablet from his bosom and smashed it straight towards this captain's head.
Ouch! Who hit me?
The captain held up his forehead, which actually had a hole smashed in. Moreover, he was directly sent kneeling to the ground from being smashed. He was kneeling in front of Nangang Luoyun and Su Luo. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The captain scowled miserably and shouted loudly, without a care for anything else. In the wake of the captain's order, an entire group of people charged over, aggressively encircling Nangang Luoyun and Su Luo. Suddenly, the mood at the scene was of mutual hostility, with swords drawn and bows bent. The corners of Su Luo's mouth hooked up slightly and looked at that captain in an unhurried manner. You're certain it's an enemy attack? You don't need to take a look at that tablet? Things that Nangang Luoyun took out. How could it possibly not be of any use? Su Luo guessed that that must be some sort of honorary token with special privileges. That captain got so angry that his eyes became bloodshot. Spitting with rage, he yelled, "Someone come, arrest these 2 spies. Seize them all for this daddy." However, before the kingly aura Nangang Luoyun was emitting from head to toe, these 3rd and 4th-ranked soldiers were inwardly cowardly. They simply didn't even dare to take a single step forward. Just at this moment, that soldier A stooped down and picked up that tablet from the ground. With just one glance, this soldier's entire body actually stiffened. He stood stiffly as if his acupuncture points had been hit. You. Give this daddy to rush overs. The captain saw the soldier A standing there dim-wittedly in place, and immediately, the captain got extremely angry and kicked Soldier A with his foot. Soldier A's body moved back and spun around, unconsciously dodging this ferocious kick. You dare to dodge this daddy's kick? The captain immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted loudly, wanting to charge over. However, Soldier A's whole body was now trembling. He looked at the captain with sympathy and pity. Then, as he handed over the command tablet to the captain, he said faintly, "Captain, you had better take a good look at this command tablet." Soldier A hastily handed over the command tablet, like he was throwing over a hot potato. Immediately after, his entire person relaxed. Originally, the captain didn't want to look. However, seeing Soldier A being so serious about this matter, a hint of suspiciousness flashed across the captain's eyes. Hence, he leisurely accepted the command tablet and set his eyes on it. This one look made him go, "Oh my God." One could only see this captain look like an exhaust fan. The muscles on his face trembled incessantly. His pair of eyes flashed with expressions of terror and fear. He stared incredulously at Nangang Luoyun and said with a shaking voice, "Porga, Tori, City." Nangang Luoyun looked like a noble god sitting high up in the clouds, arrogantly looking down and casting him a smiling glance that wasn't a smile. This captain's entire person immediately didn't feel too well. He didn't even think and directly made a bang sound, kneeling straight down on the ground. 1. Talk about Chow Chow and Chow Chow will appear, Chinese proverb for speaking of the devil he appears. Chapter 1290, Northern Mo Imperial Palace 3. That crisp kneeling sound, Su Luo, upon hearing it, felt like pain on his behalf. In fact, blood was continuously rushing out from this captain's forehead. It had dyed more than half of his face red, but he didn't even have the courage to wipe off that blood. He trembled from head to toe, as if he was about to faint at any time. This venerable lord, just now it was this person being negligent. You, as a venerable lord, are magnanimous. Please consider this person as a fart and let me go. I beg you to spare my life. Estimated that this captain wouldn't die from excessive bleeding. Rather, he would be scared to death. Su Luo pondered, holding her chin, amusedly looked at Nangong Luyun. So, it turned out what he took out was the Purgatory City's waste tablet. However, his waste tablet ought to be of a high position in Purgatory City. Look how it scared this captain. If Nangong Luyun didn't say he forgave him soon, he might get a heart disease from being scared. At the same time, Su Luo also understood Purgatory City. These two words, in people's eyes, were how powerful, overbearing, and terrifying. The corner of Nangong Luyun's lips curved up slightly. He coldly snorted once. What? Now you still block the road. Don't want me pass, right? No. The captain, having heard this, had an overjoyed expression and quickly waved his hand magnanimously. Hurry up and open the city gate. Everyone take 3 steps back and let this honored sir pass. Finished speaking, the captain bent and scraped to curry favor as he smiled flatteringly at Nangong Luyun. Venerable honored sir, please come in. Although the captain's face accompanied his words with a smile, but this captain was crying madly in his heart. He couldn't wait to send off this venerable honored sir without delay. If he stayed here, he was like a time bomb. Rumor was that people that came out of Purgatory City always had bad temperament, killing people as if cutting grass was the most common thing. Moreover, even if they killed people, the 4 countries in this mainland wouldn't dare to accuse Purgatory City's people with criminal charges. Because behind their back was one of strongest experts on the mainland, that extremely biased liked to protect his own, the venerable Purgatory City's master. Nangong Luyun led Su Luo along by her hand and arrogantly walked inside. Behind their backs, they left behind a spirited discussion. That pair of immortal-like beings actually got in. The captain that normally strutted around in front of us just now, he even kneeled to them. Not only did he kneel, but this captain was scared to the point of almost peeing in his pants. That captain isn't an ordinary person. He is His Majesty's wife's younger brother. Oh heavens! Even the king's brother-in-law kneeled down to them. What are their identities? All of a sudden, the sound of discussion in the surroundings sparked up one after another, continuously without pause. Nangong Luyun led Su Luo and walked grandiosely into the imperial capital. I thought you would take out your Royal Highness Prince Jing of Eastern Ling identity. Didn't expect you'll use Purgatory City's strength. Su Luo recalled that captain's before and after actions that looked like a different person, and she shook in amusement. Purgatory City is a transcendent existence in the mainland. Just as long as one has this command tablet, as a disciple of Purgatory City, can enjoy all privileges. Nangong Luyun stuffed this command tablet into Su Luo's hands. Put it away well. It may be useful in the future. The reason why you arrogantly entered with such a high profile was just to demonstrate how to use this command tablet. Su Luo was very smart. With a slight thought, she understood Nangong Luyun's care. Nangong Luyun returned a smile to her, flicking Su Luo's forehead. Too smart is not cute. Cute my ass. Su Luo glared at him in annoyance. Am I an idiot? That needs you to demonstrate how to use it? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.